Good morning. Today is Wednesday, August the 28th of 2019. This is a regular meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County, Texas. It's 9 a.m. We're calling the meeting to order. We're meeting at 114 West Buffington in Anderson, Texas. I would ask that if you would, please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge to the U.S. and the Texas flag. And we'll ask Charles Hopkins, if you would, please. Tompkins, I'll get it right in a minute.
You got it, you got it.
Salem House of Worship, blessing.
All right, Reverend. Yes. Let us pray. Father God, we come thanking you, first of all, that we was able to get our kids all back in school. And then we thank you, Father, for this court. We are mindful, Father, as you gave Solomon wisdom to handle the affairs of the land. Father, ask that same wisdom upon this court, upon each commissioner, upon the judge, upon the county clerk, the county attorney, the county auditor, everyone that is here, Father, that everything will be resolved. Even the budget, Father, we need your wisdom to make sure that all is well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Would you be seated, please? Our second item on the agenda is dedicated to public comments. If you have a comment that you'd like to make, please come to the podium, identify yourself, and limit your comments to 2 minutes if you would. First call, second call for public comments.
I have one announcement.
All right, sir.
St. Mary's Catholic Church is having their 125th annual bazaar this weekend. Very good food, great auction, and a lot of good fellowship. Please come out and join us.
What time is that from?
We start serving about 10:30 or 11, the meal,
Okay,
until it's over.
very good. And third and final caller, are there any other public announcements, public comments? Hearing none, we will go to consent agenda items, number 3, number 4, 5, and 6. Number 3, consider and take action to approve the treasurer's list of claims and bills. Agenda item number 4, consider and take action to approve payroll. Agenda item 5, approve monthly report submitted by the county treasurer for July 2019 and authorize advertisement of affidavit of same in accordance with the local government code 114.026, page 5 of this agenda. Agenda item number 6, consider and take action to approve budget amendments and or line item transfers. And I believe that is all of our consent agenda. And agenda item number 7, approve the minutes of previous commissioners' court meetings as listed below.
I did have a question on list of claims for, on page 7, Records, Fund 54, Records Archive. Which department is that, and is that,
That's county clerk.
Mine.
and that's finished now? That's,
Yes, ma'am,
was
we're
that was that the 3-year contract?
That was the final, yes, ma'am.
All right, thanks.
That's done with that contract, but she's already got another.
Got the new one.
Okay, but that was the one from approved 3 years ago.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions or concerns, discussion on consent agenda items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
I move to approve consent agenda items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on consent agenda items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Walker. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 8, consider and recognize the following employees for their years of service. I see that our Judge Tuck McLean is present with 30 years of service. Judge, if you don't mind, would you come forward? Commissioner Dobianski.
Who's that?
Could we have quiet so the comments can be heard, please?
My pleasure to present to you this morning this plaque for your 30 years of service with Grimes County.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
We've got this history.
Oh, we gotta get some pictures, okay.
Okay.
Connie, if you'll come over, somebody can photobomb it. Judge, well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Brenda Treasurer, that she's the one that convinced me to come to work here 30 years ago, or one of them.
Good. It's our oldest employee
Will y'all
currently.
pose again, let me get a picture. I apologize.
Here, do it this way.
Okay.
Judge, I believe you have a court waiting on you.
I have a court waiting on me, so if y'all excuse me, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Our second recipient this morning is Mr. Raymond Zarita. Please come forward. And Ramon has been with us for
15 years.
15 years.
Yay. My mom's next door neighbor.
Ramon, congratulations.
Congratulations.
That is it.
Yeah, says Cameron. Thank you. Okay, hang on. All right.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you for help, Ramon. Ramon, no understand too much. Little. And Mr. Grande told me, it's okay, Ramon, you working. No need to talk too much.
Thank you for your commitment.
Well done.
That's it?
Ramon runs the fairgrounds, but we give Randy the credit, so.
You're welcome.
All right, moving along to agenda item number 9, County Clerk Vanessa Brzezinski, discuss and approve the sheriff and constable's fees for 2020 as authorized by Texas Local Government Code Section 118.131.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a handout in front of you with a current list of our constable fees. And then I did a comparison of our fees with other counties surrounding. And so I did only hear back from one constable, and he said he was fine with the fees the way they were. So it's just that we just have to come before our court each year and approve them.
So there's no adjustments in this year's submission from last
He
year?
recommended none, and I didn't hear anything from anyone else, so.
In your analysis of the other counties, we seem to be in line?
We seem to be in line, yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, each county is different, some are higher, some are lower, but we seem to be in the middle.
If we charged more for divorce, would there be fewer of them?
I don't know.
Criminal docket might go up, huh?
Yeah.
We're exactly the same as Walker County.
And some of the other counties have fees listed that we don't have listed. I don't know if it's a requirement that we have these additional ones like the estrays. things of that nature.
Maybe you could research that and give us a
Yes, sir.
follow-up later on.
Sure. I think those are just the basic ones listed that they require.
Well, I'd be interested, like you said, in this straight because I see we pay out quite a bit for
Yes, ma'am.
animals.
Well, and I tried to find on the website, on ours and on the sheriff's website, if it was listed anywhere, and I could not find it. I mean, I know they have fees, I just don't know what they are.
Okay.
So to me, I think it would be beneficial to the public if they knew what they were.
Not only do we pay out the people who we pay to go pick them up, the cowboys, but we also pay to run the ads in the paper.
That's true.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, then I would make the motion that we approve the sheriff's and the constable fees for 2020 as authorized by the Texas Local Government Code, Section 118.131.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 9 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Cox. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10, Grimes County Auditor Mary Nichols, discuss and take action to hire a law firm to be the county's bond attorney for the Justice Center Administration Building project. See attachment number 10. Okay, attachment number 10 is a listing of 5 bond attorneys. There was no recommendation at the time that this was submitted, and I believe our financial advisor just supplied these names. Then these names, or we requested submissions from them. I've seen contracts proposals from 4.
That's
Is
all
that-
we've received.
Okay.
And
Did
also-
anybody receive any more than 4?
No, I just saw it.
Yes, ma'am?
I was just gonna say that, also I posted on the auditor's listserv
Yes, ma'am.
and asked for references for people that have used the bond attorneys. And one that responded said Bickerstaff.
And that's one of the ones that was on the financial advisors list, and that's one of the ones that we've received information from. Okay.
I also emailed all of them and asked for references. I talked to Judge Duhan in Waller County. They used the Bickerstaff for the recent jail bond. Said they had no issues with them. They said they knew what they were doing. I also talked to Cy-Fair, Chief Financial Officer, Cy-Fair School District, Karen Smith, about Bracewell LLP. And she said they were by far the best one that she's ever dealt with. She's been in the school business for about 30 years. She said they were very informative, and they came back and did training with them after they hired them. And they were second on the list of the bids there. But and the other 2 were that I talked to were Patricia Allen with Walker County about Koch, Thomas Sage, and then talked to the judge in, I think it was Lampasas, about McCall and Parkinson. He's a former superintendent, school superintendent, and he said they had really good service from him also.
Ms. Mayor, we've done business before with Bickerstaff, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is a summary of bond council bids that you presented?
Yeah, that's the summary of the contracts that they submitted to us.
And based on your comparative analysis or what they've submitted, Bickerstaff would be the most reasonable for at least what we're talking about, based on your calculations.
Well, Judge, I'm kind of a different opinion about this matter. I don't believe that we need to hire a law firm today. I think we need to slow this process down. There's too many questions without answers and/or consensus from the court. And I think we need to step back and analyze some of the issues that are surrounding the facility that don't have answers.
Okay, would you share some of those issues that you have concerns about, please?
Sure. What is the maximum amount the court's willing to borrow? Are they willing to borrow anything? If they do, are we gonna have a bond election? Are we gonna do certificates of obligation? Are we gonna do tax notes? However we obtain the money, what's the plan for payment? And if the payment doesn't work out the way we want it to, what's plan B? What is the cost to the taxpayers? What are they gonna see on their bill? Or what services might they lose if we have to take on a big expenditure that they expect and are getting now? What happened to the town hall meetings? Who's gonna manage this project? We're adding 32,000, or potentially adding 32,000 square feet to the 30 to 35,000 we already have. I mean, what's the cost?
What did you just say at the last point?
We're adding
32?
32,000 feet to the what we have now. So what's our electricity bill gonna look like with that? What's our water cost gonna be? Right now, if my figures are correct, we do about 2.5% or 2.5 cents per square foot to clean. There's too many unanswered questions.
Well, Commissioner, I appreciate your questions, and I'm not saying you're too late in the game to be asking those questions, but why haven't we, as a court, or you as a commissioner, push those questions a little bit earlier in the process? And the reason I say that, you know, one of them was the town hall meetings. We've talked, you and I have even talked about the town hall meetings and the importance of that. And I certainly agree with keeping the citizens of the county informed as to what's going on. But part of that is on hold as to, okay, let's get our semi-final design, let's get our pretty close cost, because we haven't even gone out for bid, even though our architect or the company that has done the needs analysis and drawn up the plans, they're putting the bid packages together, but those haven't gone out to contractors. And I guess my point on the town hall meetings is if a citizen says, well, what's this gonna cost? I don't know, somewhere between $10 million and $15 million. That's not a clue. In my opinion, that's not a responsible answer to the citizens. So if we get bid contracts and the bid contracts are between 13 million and 14 million, then I'm more comfortable at sharing that information with the citizens. On one of the other questions, you know, how are we going to pay for this? The discussion all along has been, okay, we're going to hold the tax rate where it's at. The next thing is that as far as is it going to be a bond election, we kind of threw that out early on and said we will make it a tax note, if I'm using the right terminology, auditors, where if our
Excuse me, we didn't throw that out, Judge.
no, the idea of,
We haven't made a decision on that.
I understand that.
Okay.
But that's the direction that I believe the court has been going, that one, we're not going to raise taxes. Two, we did not want to hold a bond election. And three, we wanted to pay for this building with the tax revenue that's already coming in. So again, Commissioner, your questions are valid, but I think some of them can't be answered until we further the process. And talking about furthering the process, this court, not all present today, but this court has been kicking this around since 2007 or 2008. And that's, 10, 11, 12 years.
Right.
And now it's still in front of us. It's going to be our responsibility, if indeed we're going to get it done, to see through the process and make sure it gets paid for.
So it took that long just to get the floor plan, and then all of a sudden, we're gonna have this stuff going in 120 days, and we really hadn't had any in-depth discussion about it on the court? I mean, it just doesn't seem logical to me. We don't necessarily have to know the exact amount, but we need to determine what is our limit. The taxpayers need to know that.
Well, we do have preliminary budget information on our agenda today. It'll take us a little bit further down the road. The auditor is preparing, she and I had a discussion yesterday on preparing some information that would help us to better make the decision. And I absolutely understand your concerns, because I have the same concerns.
Well, then why are we going forward with trying to hire a lawyer?
Well,
Let's have these discussions and get some of these concerns cleared up before.
the financial advisor, there's no cost until money's borrowed, is that correct?
The
Same thing with
same
the
with the
bond
lawyer.
attorney.
Same thing with the bond attorney, there's no money spent until we make the decision. Commissioner, I think it's important that we get all of these activities in place, and then 30 days down the road or 60 days down the road, we go, you know what? This is not the right time for Grimes County to move on with this project. We pull the plug and we're done.
So we're gonna force all these contractors to get these bids up, which takes a lot of time, and then at the end say we're done?
If that's what it comes to, that's what we should say.
Okay. Well, it's my opinion that we need to get some public input before we continue down this process.
Okay, and what public input would you request before we continue down this
Well,
process?
Judge, you, town halls.
Okay. What would we tell the folks at this point in time in a town hall meeting?
Do you want it or not?
Well, I think we answered that. I think the citizens answered that question prior to you being on the court when we did the strategic plan. Because that item came up on the strategic plan and it was number 11 out of 67. So when we had the town hall meetings back then, we're not denying citizens' input because we got that input. Now, if you think that data is too old and the opinion has changed, then, okay, maybe we need to go back out, hold town halls and just do it yes or no. But I will say this. Before I was on the court, I'm going to classify myself as an average citizen. And as an average citizen, I did not understand all of the implications, the issues that we deal with on this court, Commissioner. And it's not that the average citizen is ignorant to what's going on. They just, unless they've been involved in it, they don't have a need to know. And what I mean by that is they haven't concerned themselves about finding out what are the issues that we have in the county with the accommodations that we currently possess.
Monday morning is a perfect example of that. When we had a meeting scheduled in here, we had a meeting going on in here, we had to stop that meeting to get them in. We additionally had three judges here to hold court that day. Perfect example of why we need this new facility. And like the judge said, we've been kicking it around for years now, and we've got to move forward with it, because the longer we wait, the more it's gonna cost, in my opinion.
I don't dispute that.
And I'm not putting your concerns aside. I appreciate you putting them out here. But at some point, I mean, have we as a court decided this is what we need to do? I think the answer on that is yes. Otherwise, we'd have pulled the plug on this a good while back. Now, if it's the decision of this court that we need to move forward in this capacity, then we need to be diligent in moving forward.
I think we need to slow down.
Tax Assessor Collector Mary Ann Waters, I'll recognize you. Did Al bail on us because it got hot in here?
He's working on it.
He's working, okay.
Tax Assessor Collector Mary Ann Waters. I agree that the court needs to move on this, but the court represents the citizens of Grimes County. Therefore, I feel that we need to have the town hall meetings and discuss these issues that we are having and let them make the decisions to their commissioners whether this is something they're wanting to spend their tax dollars on to get it processed or not. And as far as town hall meetings, we have a estimate of what this building would cost from our architect. Doesn't have everything included in it, doesn't have the road bypassed on it, that the driveway they were thinking the extension, doesn't have the furniture included on it. So we need to get a hard number for them, what they think all of this total would cost, submit that to the citizens with the town hall meetings, and let them have their input and their say in this.
Okay, so are you suggesting the town hall meetings now or later?
As soon as we can, because once we get lawyers, they're gonna start looking at how to process everything, how we're gonna pay for it, how much it's gonna cost, and then they're gonna be ready to move forwards. And then we're gonna say, no, we can't do this because we gotta go do town halls. So I would think we need to do the town halls before we do that process. That's just my opinion.
Thank you for your comments. Recognize the treasurer.
And
You'll
I
come to
agree.
the podium, please.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I agree with Mary Ann and Phil, we're spending their money, we need to be accountable for it.
I want to say I've been listening to the discussion, and I've been a proponent of our citizens being involved in the whole process. This is their tax dollars. I also represent the citizens. Our citizens, I can't go to the citizens at this particular point and don't know what I'm talking about. Right now, I don't know all the numbers I need to know. Some of those numbers we won't get unless we go out for bid. When you're doing a house plan, say personally, if it's me, I'm doing a house plan. I go in with the house plan, I need to know how much this is costing per square foot, what the total sum of it is. I don't know the total sum right now until we go out for bids. When you take it to a contractor, then you get an idea of what it's gonna cost you. Then you can decide, okay, my money doesn't match what this plan has lined up to. So I really don't know how much I'm gonna need to borrow unless I go through the process of getting the bid, of talking to everybody I need, the financial people, talking to my financial planner, talking to my attorney if it were necessary in that process. It's not necessary personally, but I think the bond counsel is contingent upon if we move forward with whatever process we're moving through. But I know that the documents that I've been looking at that say tax note, to me, that didn't say we're going for certificates of obligations, we're gonna do this or that. It said tax notes. And we have kicked this around ever since I've been on here.
And you've been on how long?
7 years, almost 7 years. And it's just, I can't say it like I want to, but it involved the pot. Time to do something. Okay, we wasted a lot of money twice. This is not the first time. We had architects come in and draw up a plan, or we went out for. This is the second time. So I don't think taxpayers appreciate us starting and stopping and wasting money along the way. So there are a few more steps I think that we need to take before we take it to the citizens in the town hall. Citizen walk up to me in a town hall, how much is this gonna cost? I don't know. because we haven't went out for bids. I mean, honestly, I could not tell them. So it's some things, if you're going to have town halls, I'm all for town halls. I'm all for people knowing what's going on. But I can't honestly answer you if I don't know the answers. And some of those things, you have to move through the process to get there. You know, nobody's trying to keep anything in the dark. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. And we've talked about this a long time. You and Commissioner Mallett have been working as liaisons over the building committee since you've been on here, Commissioner. I'm not saying you don't have valid points, but like you said, couldn't you have asked some of these questions earlier in the process so that we could move along? If, you know, you all had extra meetings with the building committee, is that correct? You know, and we could have worked through some of these things that we will know what some of these things. But right now, a town hall, I couldn't do anything but say, I don't know. So some things I think we need to move forward so we can answer. And part of getting the bids, contractors do this every day. They do bids all the time. That's part of their job. You know, if they're turned down, they're turned down. They move on. But some of these numbers we need to know so we can give an educated answer to the citizens. I would not want to go to a citizen and say, I don't know.
Okay. So how much we gonna borrow?
I don't know. I don't know what the building costs.
It doesn't matter. What's our maximum amount? We're not going
It
beyond.
does
this
matter.
amount. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Well, then let's set a maximum amount.
We have an amount that you have given us, right, as the auditor, of what we currently have that can be put toward a building. The additional funds we may need, we won't know unless we go out for bid.
Commissioner Cox, I'm not prepared to fully answer your question of how much, what is the max of what we'll borrow, but I did visit with the auditor. I hope I'm okay to share our information. I visited with our auditor yesterday because she had some concerns similar to what you do, and rightfully so, because we're not talking about pocket change. We're talking about a significant amount of money, and if it's a standard payback, it's a 7-year obligation to this county. 7 years, I could not be in office. You could not be in office, and those that take over this court are going to go, what knuckleheads did this to us? Well, the record would say who those knuckleheads were. But the point, the question that I asked the auditor to put some numbers together was, okay, what are our operational expenses? Because, and I have nothing to hide, I said, next year when we send out the budget information to all of the elected officials and the department heads, if need be and necessary, I'm prepared to say, okay, submit your budgets using last year's revenue numbers less 2%. And, you know, the auditor's concern was, well, I don't want us to be like Navasota, get ourselves in a bind, and then we have to lay off employees. I don't want to be in that position either. But we do need to run the county's business as a business, and sometimes those hard decisions are necessary to make. I'm prepared to be a part of making those hard decisions. My desire, you know, is that maybe you don't cut back on personnel, but maybe you let attrition take care of a portion of that. So there's options out there, but I don't have all the information I need as to, well, I don't have all the information I need. My comment to the auditor when she quickly reviewed this with me, I said, I need more time to discuss this with you.
And I think that proves my point, Judge. I mean, why would,
Well, Commissioner, I mean, I'm of the opinion that this county wants us to do this project. And they've...
we don't know.
I'm sorry?
We don't know.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
Now, they may have had a change of heart since the strategic plan was put in place, but, I mean, I don't think you address the public and you get an answer today and then you go back to the public and get another answer tomorrow. We can't run our business like that. So much of what we do and we're obligated to do, we have to have a bit of a long-range perspective. And this is no doubt considering a long-range perspective. It's just like on the second ditching crew. You know,
I don't dispute that, but I think we need more answers.
I agree with you. We need more answers. Okay.
So we have to move forward with the process of getting bids on it to get the answers, in my opinion. Therefore, I move that we take action to approve the law firm of Bickerstaff as a county bond attorney for the Justice Center Administration Building project.
Second.
And the reason for that is because it's not gonna cost us anything until we borrow some money.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 10 by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there further discussion on this agenda item?
So we're not even gonna call them in for an interview?
Call who?
A law firm?
I called references yesterday, Commissioner Cox.
Okay.
Mr. Attorney, and I know you don't, quoting you, I don't know squat about bonds, but you do know about attorney firms. Is there value in bringing them in for a physical interview, or is their paperwork generally enough to make a reasonably good decision?
I don't know how you drew me into this thing.
Well, you're sitting there.
Right. I usually tell folks when you hire a lawyer, it's like getting a doctor. You go sit down with them and you talk with them, and if you don't feel comfortable, then you hire a different doctor. You don't take somebody just because you got referred there. Sometimes you're stuck in an HMO and that's what you have. But I would say this, if the person or people that you're hiring are jerks that you can't communicate with as a court, that will have some impairment on your ability to move forward with them. I wouldn't suggest that Bickerstaff or anybody else is, but you won't know that until you see the faces of those folks. Are you going to find out more about their qualifications? Probably not. You've probably got all you need in front of you. But hiring somebody that you trust your rights, or as a lawyer, your legal rights, or that you trust your health to, and a doctor, I don't know. I'm not suggesting you do that you're required to interview the person. Certainly you're not committing any dollars unless their funds borrowed. But to answer your direct question, I personally would sit down with the doctor. I personally would sit down with the lawyer. Bickerstaff, as I understand it, may have participated in a bond issue or some financing issue that the county undertook in 2002. I'm not clear on what that is. Corey was telling me it may have had something to do with the fairgrounds. I don't recall that. Bickerstaff, the firm, I assume that's a person's name, whether that person still exists or not, but that firm also assisted in the Chapter 258 map process. So I have confidence in that firm, but I don't know the people necessarily. David Mendez, I may have some vague recollection of who that person is from previous dealings. Again, I'm not saying any of these people are jerks, but if you're going to be required, let's say like PGAL, where you see one or two people time and time again, if it turned out that there was a conflict between the personalities of the court and the one or two people that you're going to be dealing with, that seems to me something that you would want to know.
I have a question. Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't we have a committee, a building committee that could do that interviewing?
I would think they could.
I mean, didn't they hire the PGAL people?
They did.
I was just thinking that would be.
No, they made a recommendation.
Okay, all right.
They made a recommendation
Sorry,
and
use the wrong words.
the court voted on their recommendation.
Okay.
No, we voted against their recommendation.
Oh, okay. So you guys are the ones that hired BGAL?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't.
All right, there is a motion before the court. Is there any further discussion?
Are we gonna bring them in for an interview?
I think that we were sent several packets, and I'm confident in moving forward with what I've read from Bickerstaff, and I mean, it's like PGAL, you know, it's a large enough firm. If the person you're working with doesn't work well with you, I'm sure they have somebody else you can work with. Not saying that we shouldn't know who we're working with prior, but if my experience with lawyers, I think they're large. Yeah, you're an exception.
I was just saying for my opinion, don't get me involved in y'all's debate, all right?
But I think it's a large enough firm to where, you know, they have other attorneys on staff if we have an issue.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We're not gonna investigate any of the questions, and we're not gonna bring them in for the interview.
Investigate the questions you propose.
Well,
I think that's what we.
A number of the questions you propose are not associated with whether we hire this law firm or not.
Sure they are. They cost money.
Not until we use them.
Not until we borrow the money.
And we can have those further discussions later on to kind of, you know, and then informative with the town halls and get direction from there. But if we slow this down, if the money that we did put into going out for bid, they can only hold those bids for so long before we have to rebid.
So there is a motion before the court, but seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Record the vote, 4 yes, 1 no. Agenda item number 11, Grimes County IT Director Greg Cannon, consider and take action to approve transfer of internet service from USF on to BBCOG. See attachment number 11.
Thank you, Commissioners and Judge. I'm Greg Cannon, Director of IT for Grimes County. We had gotten an original proposal. Our internet service that we currently have is with US Phone and FiberLight. That contract came up for renewal July 1st. We were in the process of negotiating with BBCOG to switch to their internet service. Since we're a member of BBCOG, we've looked at the services they're offering, the technology they're going to be using. After this discussion with them, I felt it was to our advantage to switch to the BBCOG for better service, cheaper prices, and we would be helping the county as part of that consortium that we're a member of. Originally, they were supposed to have service sometime available in the March timeframe, and then they said it'd be available in July, and we said that's perfect. That's when our contract with US Phone comes up. And that's when we put, they sent us the master service agreement, which I found out later, this is the same master service agreement that John had reviewed back in 2 years ago. It was a 3-year contract. Nothing's changed in this, but it was approved by the court, but was never fully executed contract. So as steps were taken, the judge signed the contract on the 29th of July this year to, I guess, validate the contract. But we have 1 year left on the master service agreement. So this is just a copy of that agreement, exactly as it was approved 2 years ago. As I mentioned, we were supposed to, the goal was to switch our internet service at the exact same time our current contract expired with our current provider and switch to BBCOG. BBCOG's been trying to run fiber to complete the ring, but they keep running construction problems. They're running the lines up US 90. They ran into rock and different delays, and so it looks like it was supposed to happen in July, and it was supposed to happen in September. Now they're talking November timeframe. So this will be part of the new budget process, but we're looking, our internet service should increase, our speeds will increase about 20%. We're going for 400 meg, 500 meg, but our cost will reduce about $600 per month, so about $7,000 a year reduction in our internet costs. So this is more, the plan was when I appeared before the Commissioners Court to get this approved and we would transfer service, but because of the delays, this is more informative to let you know that after the new budget process, we will be switching the service to DBCOG and saving the county some money.
So I guess my question is that, Mr. Fultz, is there any action for us to take if the contract has already been signed or approved 2 years ago?
And that was, I think that's the appropriate issue to concern yourself with. If the judge recently signed to ratify the decision that was previously made, it seems to me that this 3-year deal that was already executed is in play at this point. Have you gotten clarity from Michael about that? Because he signed, his countersignature is July also. The question I guess I have is, does the COG think we signed a new 3-year deal starting July of 2019? Or are they under the impression that we're still under the agreement that we never utilized because it was approved way back when?
Yeah, I have not confirmed that, but I'll call Michael and confirm that it's not an extension of the contract, but that it just validates the contract for another year, and then we have to sign a new 3-year contract.
Right. It doesn't matter to me, and I looked at the previous agreement, as long as it's the same, then I don't have additional concerns other than ones that were already addressed, but I would want to have clarity on whether you're talking about 1 more year or 3 more years, but I think regardless of which one you're talking about, the transfer is desired by the IT department.
Yeah. And US Phone has been gracious enough to, instead of having to renew the contract, they're allowing us to go month to month, knowing that we're transitioning to BBCOG. They work very closely with BBCOG currently anyway, so they're allowing us to transfer. There's a little bit of increase in charge in that. I haven't got the exact figure, but it looks like it's going to be between $200 and $300 a month and additional until we get transferred to the
Doing an annual payment, or month to month versus an annual?
Versus an annual.
And that's reasonable from their perspective.
So
I can find out from Michael at BBCOG on the contract issue.
So the motion would be for the transfer.
What I would suggest
Is that what we
is, was recently asked this question, does the judge have the authority to sign without the court approving it? And I think the judge just signed to ratify the action that was previously taken. If you want to ratify the judge's action from July, I think that's appropriate. But you also want to find out whether you're in for 1 more year or if you're in for 2 more years. Or I guess I should say 3 years.
But either way, we're in already. I mean,
This
either
is,
way.
well, you relying upon your man, your guy, your horse. You're going with the COG, whether you want to or not. No, you're going with the COG. But the question is, are we only left in one year left under that agreement, such that fees, terms may change after 1 year, or are we locked in for 3 years with this deal? We would probably want 3 years in all honesty because we have the old terms.
Yeah.
But I think you would just want clarity on that, and you could certainly take action today to ratify the judge's execution of the agreement.
Well, as more people get hooked up to it, the rates actually go back down, so I'd probably rather have a
Kind of like a 700, 800 radio system.
Yeah, my experience, and this is unique to IT, because technology changes so quickly. Just a few years ago, you were ecstatic if you got 30 meg internet connection in your house. Well, now they give you, 1,000 meg internet connection to your house for less money than what you paid. My experience has been that.
Depends on where you live.
Yeah. I've gotten to where I don't enter into long-term contracts when it comes to IT because next year the prices are half that. And so that's just been my experience. So I like.
So what you're saying, it might be to our advantage if it was only for another year versus 3 years.
Right.
Okay.
Right, well, so you're saying it might have been to our advantage not to have the judge sign the agreement?
Maybe that's why it wasn't signed.
Right. I don't know, it got signed last month. So you may want to take no action, especially given the transfer won't happen until October now. You may want to ask Greg to find out what the COG's position is on it. We may get a new deal at a reduced price and only have a year left on this one. I don't know.
I'll make that motion to table this, let you do the research and come back to the court at the next. We have a question?
Commissioner, did you
Did
have
you
a
have a-
question?
No,
Okay,
no, I agree.
all right. So we'll take no action, and you'll advise us, Sheree, would you put it on the next agenda? Not that there's not enough there already, but, thank you, Greg. That'll bring us to agenda item number 12, Road and Bridge Engineer Harry Walker, discuss, consider, and adopt resolution to designate authorized signatory/signatories for the 2016 flood allocation CDBG Disaster Recovery Program Contract 19-076-033-B686 and authorize procurement of related engineering services. See attachment number 12.
Can you repeat that?
No, sir.
As y'all are aware, we recently received a contract from the General Land Office for 2016 flood-related grant package that we applied for a while back. Vicky Spice of Grant Works is here to help explain all this. These next three items are all related to the 2016 grant. The first item just authorizes the judge and the county clerk as the signatories for the related documents. And then we're also asking for authorization to begin the procurement process for the engineering services for the design of the improvements covered by the grant. I might point out that these documents are standard GLO documents that we've used for previous grants, with the names and contract numbers changed, effective innocent.
Well, I'm not gonna badmouth the GLO because this is a $2 million project, but I tell you, some of the things that they want us to sign is like, really?
All the little pink man said,
No, I
that's what they're asking me to sign.
I understand, and then we have them as agenda items, and, you know, it's talking about, the next one's gonna talk about, or one of them's talking about HUD housing in April, declaring that the month, and it just,
A lot of the requirements come down from the federal government through HUD, because for whatever reason, the grant funding program is all administered by HUD. So a lot of the federal requirements on these things flow down from that, and the state passes them on to us. We don't have a lot of choice in them. I hate to say what kind of wage we'd probably make if you wanted to make May the fair housing month instead of April, but it would probably have to get approved by somebody in Washington D.C.
Sure.
So it's-
no, I get it, it's just, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but it seems like it consumes an awful lot of your time, Vicky's time, the court's time for things that we know are going to happen.
It does, but if you think of it in terms of the hourly rates of the money they're providing to us, it works out pretty well.
Okay.
Judge, in the past, and these are.
Could I get you to come to the podium, Vicky, and identify yourself, please?
Vicky Speaks with Grant Works. But in the past, each one of these items is on the resolution for the next item. Those used to have to be adopted one at a time.
Right.
So they are kind of consuming, putting stuff together to make it less, but they're probably gonna keep adding attachments.
Okay, thank you.
I move to adopt a resolution to designate authorized signatories for the 2016 flood allocation CDBG Disaster Recovery Program and authorize procurement of related engineering services.
Could you repeat that?
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 12 by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there any further discussion?
Do you want me to repeat my second?
No, sir. I got it. Loud and clear. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 13, discuss and consider and approve a resolution adopting required CDBG-DR civil rights policies. See attachment number 13. Procedurally, Mr. Fultz, should these resolutions be read, or is review enough?
It's entirely up to you. There's no requirement that you do that.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
All right, this is the big package of resolutions related again to the 2016 grant. There are a number of different resolutions and documents in this package. I'm going to just read off the titles, if
That's appropriate.
First one is a resolution regarding civil rights. The next one is the citizen participation plan.
Actually, the next one is the Spanish interpretation, or the Spanish
That's what the
translation.
translates into for the citizen participation plan.
Okay.
The English and Spanish versions of the citizen participation plan. We have the section 3 policy, which is job training and employment policies. There's an excessive force policy. There's an English proficiency plan, because the county is over 5% people with limited English proficiency, including me. And then section 504 policy against discrimination on handicapped individuals. The code of conduct policy, separate and apart from the county's code of conduct policy, and a fair housing policy. Again, these are all requirements that flow down from HUD. It is what it is.
Yes, sir.
I think you will provide detailed explanations of any of those you're interested in.
In all seriousness, Commissioners, do you have any questions for Grant Wright, Grant Works, on any of these policies?
I don't. I'd like to make the motion to approve a resolution adopting the required CDBG-DR civil rights policies.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 13 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Agenda item 14, proclaim April as Fair Housing Month. This proclamation will help to fulfill fair housing activity obligations as required by the grant. See attachment number 14.
This is the simple one in the package. It's just a declaration, which you've done in the past years, as we have for every one of these grants. Just don't ask to change it tonight.
I move to proclaim April as Fair Housing Month.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 14 by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Walker. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Vicki, are you gonna, because after we adjourn, because I want to visit with you and Cherie. Okay, thank you. Mr. Walker, road and bridge report, please, sir.
Right, it's paving season. Our crews have been busy working on both preparing different roads for our contractors and also on doing some of our own paving. Our contractors have been busy. We've completed the first seal on all of the contracted roads, chip seals, 403, 404, and the Bracewell Harrison neighborhood.
Do you happen to know what the total mileage of those is?
I want to say it's 5 miles plus or minus. I know you asked me that before and I never went back and looked, but I recall it's about 5 miles.
All right, sir.
We are starting the second seal on those roads. They're going to start tomorrow on 403 and 404, and then finish up the rest of it with our contractor next week if we don't get bad weather or anything. Elsewhere, Knife River completed the Link Road project.
Good.
That came out really well. They did a really good job. and knocked it out in a week's time. It's nice to have a contractor who knows what they're doing. They didn't have any issues, equipment breakdowns or anything, and it looks good. Our crews are working on 185 today. We have 185, we finished up today. We've got Askew at 201 and 174 are remaining roads for the first course of chip seal. 174 we're going to leave till the end just to see if our budget stretches far enough to get that all done. But we're been real busy with all this and will continue to be through September unless the money runs out. Also on the mowing and side booming, our crews been using some of their overtime money. We're doing quite a bit of that ourselves, but also our contractors started the second cycle this week. They started in the south end of the county this time, and they're working their way back north. And that, last time it took them about 2 weeks to go through the whole county, the whole list of roads we had, so pretty efficient operation. And then elsewhere, we received our initial payment through Tatum from FEMA for October 2018 flood damages. These are reimbursements for the work that we did to repair the damages. So that's starting to come in. We anticipate receiving additional funds here shortly on that.
Harry, on that, the initial is 85,000. Do you know what the total of that project would be?
The total is either 237 or 267.
I want to say it's 267.
I
I'm
think
remembering that
267.
number, but that's why I was
267
asking.
is probably
Okay.
the right number.
All right. Thank you.
And we're still waiting on some of the last payments going all the way back to the 2015 flood, so I'm glad that they're moving faster. We've kind of gotten some of the more recent disasters ahead of the older ones, but I'm not going to complain.
Okay.
And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the 2016 grant from GLO, we've got the contract, the judges signed the contract on that, and we had our kickoff meeting last week, so we're officially underway on that project. It'll be a 2-year contract, or is a 2-year contract, so go through August of 2021 to finish up.
And that's $2,020,000, 20,000 coming from us,
That's right.
and 2 million from the.
Yep.
Good.
Pretty good ratio. And that project primarily covers the Blackberry area, but there are some other bits and pieces of other roads included as well.
But Blackberry should be relieved. They're finally getting some.
They're
Some
quite
level.
happy, the folks out there, and they have worked hard, worked with us, have helped us out.
Sure.
In doing everything they could to, help procure this grant. So
Yeah.
we appreciate the support, glad it all worked out.
Very good.
Any questions? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll go to agenda item number 15. County Judge Joe Fouth discuss HB 240, which amended the Commissioners Court Rules of Procedure, Conduct, and Decorum to become effective September 1, 2019, and consider and approve any necessary changes. See attachment 15. Cherie, did we get the modified attachment?
She laid it up here.
Oh,
this
okay.
morning.
All right. This is in, hopefully, and our county attorney has reviewed, but this is to put us in compliance with House Bill 2840 that deals with open meetings and public comments, things of that sort. It is going to require citizens that want to speak at Commissioners Court to submit a public participation form. That's the last page of this attachment. And that would then be submitted to the county clerk. And then the county clerk would advise us as to who wants to speak, as the form shows, what they want to speak on, are they representing any particular group, etc. But the form is fairly self-explanatory. After going through the initial requirements, I had a question on item number 4D, and the House bill was saying, or the information was that the people are going to have a proper attire. And on the basis of that, I asked the county attorney if we're going to have them proper attire, do we need to have some description or some notification as to what proper attire is? Because airlines say you should have proper attire, and when I've flown recently, some of it's not very proper, but that's a matter of opinion. So we ended up putting in, or we inserted the information, proper attire for men, women, and children is mandatory. That's where it stopped. We put shirts and shoes are required for all persons at all times. Children under 5 may wear shorts. Men should wear long pants and remove hats. Women should wear pants or skirts extending below the knee. Children over 5 are subject to the same dress requirements as men and women. I know they're in the main courthouse. The court security deputy will not let people in shorts, men or women. He'll turn them away, and it's just a matter of keeping some respect for the decorum of the court, whether it's commissioner's court or a district court or county court of law or whoever. But I felt like, it was my idea, I felt if we're going to require or say it's mandatory, then to some degree what's mandatory. So this is very minimal, but this gives some basic guidelines as to how people should come to court. Comments on any of the information?
Judge, I do have one comment about dress in court. I know.
Would you like to come to the podium and identify yourself?
Sure, glad to. Diane LaFleur, District Clerk. I know when we have people coming for jury duty, lots of times they come in shorts. And I'm wondering if maybe we should post somewhere on the website or something that they need to be dressed so that we can refuse them, because if it comes up and we end up not having enough on the jury and we've turned away 3 or 4 people, they can move for mistrial, and I don't know the laws or the rules, but John, you can have some insight on that. But I just don't want, because we've had an incident, and I just don't want that to.
I don't know if jury duty dresses, if we're talking about court attire and they're coming to court, is it appropriate to discuss it at this time?
Sure, but what I think she's just saying how it's analogous, and what she's saying essentially is that may have some impact on an appeal of somebody who is denied, somebody that may have sat on the jury.
Okay.
In this case, your consequence is someone who complains they didn't get to come to a public meeting because of the clothing. You asked me the question last time about whether the proposal from your association was the way to go, which allowed folks to turn in the participation form right up until the agenda item. The statute is pretty broad, and it says public has a right to speak either before or at the time the item is being considered. The next provision says you have the right to develop reasonable rules for this to take place.
Right.
Your reasonable rules can include anything that you deem as reasonable. Now, you could do putting on the internet, certainly I would think that you'd want your rules of decorum to be on the internet anyway.
Right.
But there, many ways to deal with that circumstance, and sounds facetious, but you could have a pair of baggy pants that came to court and was sitting at the doorway. If somebody really wanted to be here, they had to put on the baggy pants if they got on shorts. There's ways to deal with it from a practical standpoint. I would say it would be of concern when you deal with something that is a highly controversial issue that someone wants to show up for and someone wants to participate in, and they get denied because they have shorts on. I think we address it at that point, but putting on the internet, certainly nothing wrong with that.
Let me ask you, Diane, on the jury summons notice, that's a postcard, is it not? Is that pretty full?
Very full. We have, I mean, you can barely read it, we've scrunched it down so.
Because if there was a way to say, please check the county website for a dress code, applies to all people entering the
Mike.
court or something like that.
Mike.
And then Cherie, we can certainly have that on the website, can we not? Easy to do.
I
Is
let
it
me
even
talk
okay?
to my district judges before I make any determination on that, because they might say it's okay to wear shorts. I mean, I don't think they would, but I'm just saying, I don't want to speak for them, and I do know that there's been instances
There was
where.
a lady turned away yesterday for
Right,
court.
but that wasn't for a jury, so I'm
No.
only concerned if it's for a jury, because if we end up not having enough, then it can be an issue.
But I think we Commissioners Court need to have our blinders a little wider, that anybody that comes to any of our courts, you know, I don't believe we want to have one code for Commissioners Court, one code for District Court, one code for County Court of Law. If we standardize it throughout the county, but you're right to talk to Judge Kramer and Judge McCake.
Well, okay. Thank you.
My
Judge,
question, go ahead.
I mean, I'm opposed to policing the public dress code. If somebody wants to come up here and make a comment, they're more than welcome to do so. And me personally, I don't care what they have on. There's plenty of work uniforms that are shorts, including and up to the police. And I don't want to deny anybody the right to come in and make a statement to this court just because they have shorts on. That's my opinion about it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you may.
I just wanted some clarification on paragraph 4, where it says, no, I'm sorry, paragraph 3, I apologize. A request this is in regard to an agenda item being put on the agenda. It says a request must be filed with the county judge and approved by at least one member of Commissioners Court by 12 noon on Wednesday, immediately preceding the next regular meeting. Does that mean that one of the commissioners has to approve the agenda?
No. One member
Or
of the
does that
court.
include the judge as a member of?
He's a
Because it
member.
says judge and at least one member of the
No,
Commissioners Court.
filed with the judge, but approved by one member of the court. So it has to be handed to the judge's office or emailed or faxed to the judge's office, and one member of the court has to approve of it. The judge could say, I don't approve of it. That person then needs to find a commissioner that says, I do. The judge in most cases is going to say, I approve of it. The judge is a member of the court.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then the second one was paragraph 4, where it's talking about the public addressing. And we did change it to prior to the meeting starting. Is this our public comments? Will they be able to comment during the meeting, after each agenda item, or only during public comments?
My interpretation, and I'm subject to correction, but would be in the public comment section.
That's when it'll be, but it says that person will be recognized. I can tell you, having been to the city meeting the other day when there was some contentious issue that was being discussed, and this may or may not have been in effect at the time, and Ms. Clements may be able to tell us better. My understanding is you have to fill out the form, turn it in by X hour, X minute, whatever it is, and then you are recognized during the public comment section by the chair of the meeting. And so that person then gets from the clerk, I assume, those forms and says, okay, so-and-so, this is your opportunity to speak. Now, keep in mind, this is always your meeting, right? I mean, it is, I think what has been confirmed by the legislature is that you are, you've been elected by the people and people should have an opportunity to speak, whereas before there was no guarantee of that. This court's always given that right anyway. You have, at the time that agenda item comes up, the opportunity to say, hey, Madam Treasurer, hey, Tax Assessor Collector, I need your input on this thing. So that's different than the public saying, I want to say my piece. you always have the opportunity to recognize someone when that item's being considered,
Correct.
if any one of you believes that you would benefit from that information.
Okay, so just for clarification, anybody now that wants to speak during public comments will have to fill out that form.
Well, once they approve this, yes.
That's what I mean.
If they
Yeah.
approve it, that's right. You have to
Right,
fill out
okay.
the form. There may be some transition period where the court allows folks to get educated or get informed about this or comfortable with it. But the form would be filled out, it would be handed to the clerk. The clerk would then, in my opinion, deliver it to the chair of the meeting, presiding officer of the meeting, whoever that happens to be. It's usually the judge, but if he's gone, the person with seniority. That person then calls the name and recognizes them during the public comment section. Yes,
Is, okay, going back to the point you made about the city council meeting, and according to what I understood the new changes to be, I know that you say each court can set their own, but is this going to be doing an item? Because the other night at the city council, they were recognized for that item. So are we recognizing people when it comes to that item if they filled out a participation form?
The rule says the person will get to talk when they're recognized.
When they're
It doesn't
recognized?
say when they're recognized. That's up to you.
Okay, because I kept hearing her ask about his public comments.
Right.
So I'm saying if later in the meeting, that person is still asking to be recognized.
No. The chair recognizes them. So the chair says, it's public comment time, and I have John Smith, who's filed a request. Mr. Smith, it's your turn to go. That's the chair recognizing that person to speak.
Doing
Unless you
public
recognize-
comments?
Yes, correct.
But I'm asking about
You
when
don't
the
have any
item.
obligation to do that. Can you do that? Sure.
Okay.
You don't have any obligation.
Because I know that occurred during the item or the course of the proceeding.
I walked in late, so I didn't know the order of
Yeah.
things, but
We
I-
had already started, the
Right,
meeting
but-
had already started, and they lined up when the item came up.
I understand, but I would tell you, of course, you know, the rub is, every meeting you have can't be a town hall where everybody who has a thought gets to say what they want to. And I know that sometimes I'm guilty of the same thing, but you can't allow it to be that. This is supposed to be a meeting of the five of you exchanging ideas. I like this, I disagree with that, etc. You were elected for that. It's not to take the pulse of everybody in the crowd. But the legislature has now said, these folks own this room, they own your pay, they own this electricity. They ought to have the right to get up and talk if they want to about an agenda item or otherwise. And so they have an opportunity to say that. You, in my opinion, have the right and the ability to say, we're going to create rules that make this orderly and not a town hall where 50 people are going to talk on a specific item. We're going to take all those things on the front end and have everybody heard. And then when the agenda item comes up, we'll either discuss it ourselves, or we may recognize those folks, or I may have people that I've invited that I want to come and talk at this moment. So you remain in control is what this allows you to do. Those folks only talk when the court recognizes them. Not that I expect the court to shut anybody down, but without order, this would be a madhouse, and you certainly could be here for a lengthy period of time.
So this basically, to me, doesn't really exchange anything but the participation form when they speak at the public comment.
It doesn't change anything as far as this court is concerned, because this court has been allowing the public to
Right.
comment. There was no requirement they be permitted to. Every judge that I've ever dealt with has always said to me, I want the public to have an opportunity to. So you're right. As far as a procedural matter, shouldn't be any change other than that form being turned in, and now somebody knows their name before they show up
Okay.
and recognizes them.
All right.
So are there any other thoughts on the dress code based on Commissioner Cox's comments?
I just think that, like you said, sometimes uniforms may be shorts in the summer. I think as long as they're decent and they're not,
So do-
provocative
just
or
maintain-
something.
So is it then better to go back to what was originally there, proper attire for men and women and children is mandatory, and let it go at that?
Let it go at that. That's what I would say.
Commissioner Cox, would that satisfy you?
Yeah, but, sure. We don't have a dress code currently, do we?
Well, that's my
Just
point,
proper
you know.
decorum.
But I mean,
we'll just have a properly attired. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily have
properly
to be-
attired.
Well, and I just, you didn't ask for this, but if you leave it at that, there's gonna be an argument. The person who shows up barefoot in cutoffs with no shirt on is gonna say, who tells me what's proper attire? And each of the five of you is gonna say, I think it is, I don't think it is, I think it is.
Come on down.
Y'all make, and if that's what, if that's your decision, that's your decision. But that's the risk that you run if you make it that wide open. You're gonna have a very difficult time turning away anyone based upon attire.
How about we modify and say proper attire for men and women and children is mandatory. Shirts and shoes are required of all persons at all times. Children under, well, period, all times. And then scratch, children under 5 may wear shorts. Scratch, men should wear long pants and remove hats. Although I disagree, I think they ought to remove their hats in a court. And then women should wear pants or skirts extending below the knee. Children over 5 are subject to the same dress requirement. We can scratch that also.
That's fine, but I'm not sure why you're allowing people not to wear pants. I mean, that's what you just. Shirts and shoes are required, but you mentioned nothing about pants.
Just start at the shirts and shoes are required. Say proper attire for men, women, and children is mandatory. That's what he's saying. Right after that, it says shirts and shoes, but there are no pants there.
We don't want anybody to test it either.
So what, shirts, pants, and shoes, or eliminate the whole sentence?
Eliminate that sentence right after mandatory.
Proper attire.
And then children under 5 may wear shorts, that's negated, so that's eliminated. Men should wear long pants and remove hats.
I think removing that should stay in here. I think that's just being respectful.
I'm okay to leave, men will remove hats, or
Most men, I hope, know that.
well, a bunch of don't.
There's some that don't.
Men will remove hats, period. Women should wear pants and skirts, okay, so they don't have to wear tops, is that it? Y'all picked on the men, let me pick on the women. So we'll scratch that sentence also. And then children over 5 are subject to the same dress requirements as men and women, we'll scratch that. So what it would read is, proper attire for men and women is mandatory. Men will remove hats. Those members of the public who are inappropriately attired or who do not conduct themselves in an orderly and appropriate manner will be ordered to leave the meeting, refusal to buy, blah, blah, blah. Are you okay with those changes?
Yes.
All right. So with those changes as noted, is there a motion on agenda item number, I believe it's 15. Agenda item number 15 regarding HB 2840.
I make the motion that we approve the court's rules of procedures, conduct, and decorum to become effective September 1st, 2019, with the changes noted, and consider, no, and that's it.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 15 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 16, discuss fraud policy and overall update of employee policy. See attachment number 16. This was initially introduced to us by the tax assessor collector, I believe, going through some old files and documents and so forth. But it has been reviewed and updated. Or were there any changes made to it?
The email addresses need to be changed.
Okay, I highlighted those. I say I did. I think I did. Yes. The highlighted, for Lucy Pope and for Mary Nichols, those need to be updated.
County tax collector needs to be updated.
Say again?
Oh, okay.
And the overall goal of this is to make this part of the personnel policy.
And also the thought was that when we hire new employees, this would be a part of their indoctrination into the county. What about incumbent employees? Was the plan to,
Send it out to them.
okay.
Would we be combining environmental and 911 addressing as, or just two different signatures? Two signatures, I guess.
She can sign it twice, or we can put a slash between the two of them.
Okay.
Do we need to add the maintenance department? And IT? And probably county court at law?
Any other additions or modifications? So the modifications to what we have in front of us would be update the two email addresses for HR and for auditing, combine environmental and 911, add IT, add maintenance, and add county court of law. Commissioners, any other observations? Is there a motion on agenda item 16?
I move that we approve the broad policy.
Judge, there's an issue of whether 16 involves any action or not.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. So based on that, do we need to bring it back before the court
That'd be my guess.
with the changes?
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be my
we'll
guess.
make the changes as proposed, Cherie, and then we'll put it on the agenda, bring it back before the court. Is that acceptable to you, Mary Ann? Because I know you had brought it to our attention, but, okay. All right, we will do that. Thank you, John. Agenda item number 17, discuss and take action on proposed changes to the FY20 proposed budget. Okay, going into budget mode.
Number 15.
Ma'am?
He just said discuss two. He didn't say take action. I know he did. I mean, it's fine.
Okay.
Just
Thank
note
you.
it.
Yeah. All right. Mayor, how do you want to proceed on this? Do you want to let Jesse come up and give the additions that are currently on the table for consideration?
Yes.
Okay.
She's got it all written up.
Ms. Murphy, I know you're just excited about that opportunity. Discuss and take action on the proposed, so as the items. Oh, it doesn't? Okay. Thank you.
Judge, if it pleases the court, I know one of the items I think will be the discussion of the dates to the fairgrounds. Can we take that up first?
Sure.
So Mr. Kruger can get back to
Sure.
the fairgrounds.
Sure. Randy, can I get you to come up to the podium? One of the things, to remind us where we're at on that, in one of our last discussions, we had kind of cut, sliced and diced your budget to maintenance and repairs effectively. And one of the things that we had asked Commissioner Cox to do is to get with you, because I know that there was a pretty good sized wish list on things that in some instances we need to do and some instances we want to do. We asked to get some pretty close representation numbers and see what we could add to the budget and what we couldn't. So with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Again, looking at our general maintenance and repairs, I think that was one area that we had talked about, and based on what we had last year, the number that I've put before you is something that I feel like we can operate with. But again, I guess my thought would be on some of these items, I would like to see them separated out into capital improvement funds instead of general maintenance, because there's some things that we want to do. So we still need the funds that were available. It's just that I think if we approach it from a different aspect of general maintenance versus capital improvements. I've gone through these lists, and we've had different contractors, different people come out and talk about different things. I also worked with Mr. Walker with Road and Bridge on our parking lot issue, which is, I know, been something that a lot of the folks out there have been concerned with. With the help of the Chamber of Commerce of Navasota, we met with Angel Brothers, the representative from Angel Brothers who opened up the new rock yard, tied in with Mark Marietta and Glenn Fuquay, and they showed an interest in possibly working with us on getting us material to do the rock material, which is normally one of the most expensive parts of the project. And they have, we've talked with had several different meetings with them. One of the again, the rock is expensive, but one of their alternatives is that they have a source for RAP, which is reconditioned asphalt material. And they're considering possibly making some available to us and possibly coating it, and then for us at their plant there at Century Asphalt in Navasota. And then if we could use our trucks to bring it out to the fairgrounds, the county's trucks to bring it out to the fairgrounds, and then have the county maintenance, the road and bridge people, help put the parking lot down to resurface it. Again, I know their schedule is, they're exhausted with everything they've got to do. But if we could do it during the off-season when, maybe when Century Asphalt is not, when they have some time that they can help us coat this RAP material, and when Road and Bridge, if they ever have any downtime, when we can get them to step in and help us with putting that material down. So Mr. Walker did put together a package for us that outlines what it would cost to do that from the county standpoint, and it would either mean to either add those funds to Road and Bridge or to add them into the fairgrounds budget, and then have me transfer it to him when the work was, when the work was being completed.
I'm not understanding your chart. You have two numbers, and I don't know which number you want me to look at.
I think that's all that I got for those attachments, I think.
The top portion, this one, the top portion is labor and equipment only,
for going in on the existing parking lots and roads at the fairgrounds, to have Road and Bridge come in and spread the material that Randy's trying to get donated. And that would take basically about a week of our time to do all that. And I've calculated that, I've provided information on the size of these areas, and we're talking about putting 1.5 inches of material over everything, basically. And that comes to about a little over $20,000 to do that work. Again, that's just the labor and equipment charges to do that. Then the lower portion where it says remainder of site, I was asked to look at if we expanded the main parking lot all the way out to the highway right of way. And that's with that $33,000 there. And then along with that, there are a couple of other issues, that there's a drain pipe that crosses the existing parking lot that would also have to extend it under the new parking lot. And then we would be paving around the light standards out in the parking lot. And I recommend putting in some bollards around those to protect them. So I did notice earlier the total, that $54,000 at the bottom is not correct. The existing parking lot, the number is $20,592, and then the expansion is about another $42,000. So the $62,053 for everything is correct, but that $54,000 total, I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it's not correct.
Just for the parking lot, it looks like.
Well, it
It's
didn't even total
excluding the
up
drainage
that.
pipe and, yeah,
Yeah,
it missed the
it didn't
drainage
even
pipe.
total that up. I think I hit a row in there that didn't get added. So the numbers are slightly different than what was, and then, okay, so that's for the parking lot. Elsewhere on the other spreadsheet, previously, we had figured a cost to build a sidewalk along the front of the fairgrounds building for handicap park, adjacent to the handicap parking. And those costs, this is costs I had put together for Wayne Alphen previously. That's about $1,200 for materials for that. And then the little box down at the bottom, if we wanted to do what Randy suggested, to have the material supplier go ahead and coat, put some asphalt emulsion on the wrap material before they brought it out, or to have Road and Bridge do that after it's brought out, whichever way. The material for that sack coat would run about another $18,000. If you did everything, you're looking at about $80,000. And that's not counting the value of the donated materials, which would be the larger portion of that. I think when we had looked at it previously, to have a contractor provide, all the materials and everything, cold mix, that package for just the existing parking lot came out to about $230,000.
I do have some questions for Mr. Krieger. What are your priority items?
The parking lot and the water well are our two biggest concerns. During the fair this year, we ran very, very dangerously close of running out of water. We have two wells there currently. One of the wells was the original well that was drilled, and I've talked with several different property owners, business owners, and homeowners in that area, and everybody tells me that the water table there is very, very low. Like I said, we had to go into some emergency measures of actually tying those wells together to be able to keep up with enough water during the fair this year. It gets critical during some of the major events, when you, especially during June and July and August, keeping up with that. I have talked with the folks from the Fair Association, and they've shown some interest in partnering with us on possibly drilling a new well. One of the ideas that we had was to move the location of the proposed new well closer to FM 3455, and then running a line back to where we could tie it into one of the existing wells if we needed to, but also to make that well available for emergency use in case of volunteer fire departments or City of Navasota or someone like that that needed emergency water, to set a 10,000 gallon tank there in case of a wildfire, grass fire, or something like that, where we needed emergency water, to where we could use that well in conjunction with that, and possibly partner with the Fair Association, the Plainfield Stone and Bunch, and maybe some other emergency management funds that might be available to help drill that well.
Would that cost, in moving the well, would it be more than the 25 that's proposed?
No, that's the way we're proposing it now, is to drill it up there closer to FM 3455.
Would you say that's your number one priority?
At this time, yes.
Okay, on your, we had a lot of talk the last time about your HVAC units and the phase zones, the energy control units.
Right. Again, we are, the fairgrounds is set up on a demand meter, and that demand, they read that, they take the time during the hot months, and Mid-South Synergy's theory for that is that's when we need the most electricity, and so they charge us a demand meter fee for that, so that we can have enough electricity for all year. We have fought this battle for the last 16 years that I've been involved with the fairgrounds, and they're happy with what they're getting. We budgeted for it. We know what we're having to pay, but it would be an option to go in and put a energy consumption control device on there that during Tuesday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday, something like that, where we could lower the cost of that. It would be a savings. I put $12,000 in there because from the people that I talked with, that was a number that we felt like, also based on a percentage of what we can spend to save the energy. That's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about a 20% cost to save. You know, if our utility bill's running $60,000 a year, I can't see spending $50,000 to save utilities. So based on just the numbers that I got with several different, with the people from Entergy and some of those, that would be a number that we would estimate to go in, because we're gonna have to break out some of the electrical panels in order to, you don't want to shut down your water wells and those kind of things, but your main energy consumption would be the HVAC units. And so that's why we budgeted that number for that.
On the demand meter that you currently have, is that amount set, is it costing the county the same amount every month?
Every month.
Okay, which I think I saw 5,000.
It's about $60,000 a year, I think, in our
Yeah,
utility
it runs
budget.
anywhere from
Yeah, well, that's about 5.
4,800 to over 6,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's currently set at that. So you say you see a 20% drop in that amount?
No, I've said, that number that I've budgeted for the energy control units is about $12,000 is what I could see us spending to try to save the utilities. You know, I don't have a number on what it would save us, just because until you go in and break out each one of those units and how many kilowatts each one of those are using, that would have to be something that have to be gone in and done an analysis on to figure out what we can shut down, what we can take off, and what we control. But I wouldn't consider putting that unit in again, at a 50% cost, if it cost us $30,000, I don't think we can save $30,000 a year. Over the course of the next 3 years, we probably could get that $12,000 back in savings.
So in terms of the energy control units, there is more analysis that need to be done?
Sure, yeah, once we determine that we want to do that, then we bring in the people from Energy and they can go through and take a voltmeter and check each one of those units and see what it's pulling, how many kilowatts it's pulling, you know, how many hours and base it on how many hours we're gonna run it a week. And then this number I looked at is over a 3-year period of what we could save over 3 years.
But are you saying Energy or Mid-South? Which one?
Yes, Mid-South.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things too is to have them kind of come on at intervals where they're not all at one time, which is where that peak demand comes in. So those control systems, you know, limit the time before that next one can kick on.
That's exactly right.
But what I'm hearing him say is they have not broken out any cost savings to see if it's even worth.
Well, just on the demand itself, I don't know what the actual kilowatt usage is, but if we can reduce or almost eliminate that peak demand,
Right.
It'll be a significant cost saving.
But I hear you saying you haven't determined yet what's water well, what's AC. You're talking about AC.
Yeah, the ACs and the lights, I mean, where you can only kick on a certain random number of lights on at one time. You can only kick on the AC, and I think some of those control systems, this might be a little bit low for a good control system. I think it may be closer to 15 to 18,000, I think, from what I've seen. That would be something you could kind of basically he could do on an iPad and, you know, control,
Right.
you know, which ones can come on, or only if they only rented one building, only that one can be utilized, so.
But did I not hear you say that you would not want to spend the money unless you could see the cost savings?
Correct, yeah. I mean, again, if it's $18,000 based on once we do the analysis, if we can determine that's a good value for us. But if they come back and say, well, it's gonna cost $30,000 to set this system up, then I don't see, and when our utility bill's running $60,000, I don't think that's a wise investment.
Now, I've heard a lot of talk when I go out there from the different organizations, and one of their primary concerns too were the repainting of the barn. Is it underneath the?
Right.
And where they've gotten off in the dirt.
Correct.
So is that what?
Those barns were put there, Commissioner Dobianski, they were 30 years ago?
At least.
And over the course of time, that red iron, it's been repainted one time. We got some assistance probably 20 years ago from TDC to come in and repaint the barns, because some of the barns were moved from Anderson and put there, some of the barns were put there new. And over the course of time, with we having to bring in different material for different events either to raise the level or to soften the ground or pack the ground for different events, we're getting a lot of material, dirt basically around the bottom of the piers, and that's not a good situation when you got iron and dirt and or iron in wet soil. Yeah. So that we're going to have to try to do, but the above part needs to be repainted. I actually am working with a company right now that's giving me an estimate on coming in and putting that closed cell foam along the under the roof of all the outside barns. It does have to have a special coating to make it stick, but it would help us a lot if we could go in and, rather than repaint that, look at the option of putting that closed cell foam up there for insulation, which would help a lot during the hot months. And I know that the Fair Association also has a proposal from a company to install the big fans. We're looking at trying to partner with them at some point down the road on that project, and also the LED lighting under the barns. We're still operating on those old those light bulb things, and now with LEDs, I think if you drive by there at night and you see what we've done around the buildings, it's made a huge improvement. And I think if we went to the LED lighting under the barns, that would also be a big energy savings for us. So
Would you do that after the barn has been painted or the foam has been put in?
Correct. All that would have to be done first, so.
I'm sorry, is the foam, is that in replace of repaint barns?
It would be in
instead of?
conjunction with it, or part of those funds would be used for that closed cell phone.
So now, if you said 60,000 just for painting, and you're adding foam to the equation, does that number remain?
No, that number would come down because actually, part of that, I could probably try to do in-house or with, it wouldn't take as much for us to paint those beams and do that if I didn't have to get up to rent man lifts and stuff like that to get up on the, to do the underside of the roof.
And the advantage to the foam is what?
Insulation.
Insulation, keep from being so hot.
Oh, yeah. With having as many different events as we have with cook-offs and rodeos, roping, dog shows, concerts, just a lot of different things that we have out there. We're gonna have to study that a little bit to make sure that if we do have a cook-off out there, that the smoke or the heat's not gonna affect that. So I just contacted those people last week, and we actually had a conversation this morning, and they'll be coming out in the next week or so to look at that. But that part, the repainting of the barns, is not something that I think that is critical that we do right now. I think we can survive without that. But the water well, the parking lots, and the HVAC units are probably the things that we need to look at that are our priority.
On the parking lot, going back to that, so the material you're looking at as being donated?
That's what we're hoping for.
Okay. We're not sure yet.
Correct.
So just road and bridge, if material were donated, it's about 80,000 for doing all of the projects that you talked about?
Including the expansion of the parking lot. Yes.
Is expansion of the parking lot absolutely necessary at this time?
At this time, if we can go in and resurface what we have now and get that fixed. My thought is, I've had several people approach us about why don't you expand the parking lot all the way to 3455, but again, with county growth and what I've seen out there in the last 15 years, there's some possibility that we may need some of that property out there for drain fields or for possible growth or expansion. Those front, I can see where you could use that front of that parking lot for another county facility, and then you could utilize the parking lots for both of them. So at this time, I would say if we could do what we have, take care of what we've got now.
The current parking lot.
Correct, the current parking lot. And the others is not as critical right now, I don't think.
And I know painting and striping has a cost associated, but if we had it surfaced.
Correct.
And we did that, we would increase our parking spaces.
Sure.
Because you and I both know, a lot of us truck drivers, we just go out and park it and
Yep.
everybody's kind of.
Yeah, no, and that is something that we have to consider is to having it striped or using the parking stops like we installed in front of those buildings now. That's helped us tremendously.
And sidewalks, I think, would be something that needs to be done.
For the ADA.
Right, for
Yes.
ADA.
When we were here last time, I don't see anything listed on here for possible sewer or drainage issues.
Yeah. At the current time, our system is maintaining everything that we have. Now, again, in the future, we're probably looking at something like that. I've talked to 2 different people, and that's another cost that we're probably looking at another $25,000, $30,000. It's possible that we can use our current tanks and lift pumps that we have. It may just mean going in and putting in a new aerobic system, because what we have out there now is the old drain fields. And I don't think, both of the companies that I talked to said that that's probably wouldn't be acceptable in this day and time.
Is that why you're talking about the front of the parking lot may need to be filled?
We may need that area out there for spray fields.
Okay, so your main two items that you talk about, well, actually 3 or 4. It's parking lot, new water well, replace the 10-ton, is that what you, on this?
Yes, I've got one unit that's out. We're getting by with it now, but I do want to look at replacing that one, take some of the load off the other ones, as well as the new one. We would want to add a dehumidifier in there to with that one unit, and that one would possibly take care of a lot of the problems that we're having with the humidity in the.
How many units do you have? How many units?
7.
7 around the. Al, what would it take to put a chiller system in out there?
How many square foot is that, Randy?
10,000. 10,000, yeah.
10,000 square
10,000
feet?
for the main hall, yeah.
So you're looking at approximately 60 to 75,000 to replace it. Now that's just the chiller, not the labor for running lines, air handlers.
But no doubt the chiller would be a huge savings on the utility cost, would it not?
Sure, it will, as long as you have a control system doing everything that Randy's trying to do without a non-controlled system.
Okay.
But a chiller system would require us to have enough water to operate that.
It's a closed circuit.
Is it?
Closer.
Okay.
Yeah, like my courthouse is a closer.
Okay.
So Randy, with, on your general maintenance and repairs, because you talked about capital improvement projects and you talk about general maintenance and repair. So was any of this money dedicated to any of these capital improvements, just maintenance and repair?
That's strictly maintenance and repair, and then to take whatever projects that the court deemed or that we feel like we can put into our budget and add that into a capital improvement budget along with general maintenance and repairs.
Okay. So those two numbers, so when I add those numbers together, 14,000, 12,000, 25,000, 2,592 for the parking lot, 1,234 for the sidewalks, $80,000 for the, I'm sorry, parking lot was 20 million. I'm coming up with 152,826 on capital improvement projects that you'd like to happen.
Well, I'm gonna again advocate that he created this list out of need, and we have the money, and it is a county asset that's in need of repair in many areas, as witnessed by this list. And with the exception of the playground equipment and probably covering the rodeo ring at this time, I think we should add the parking lot and go with these proposals that he has right here.
Do you know what that totals, Commissioner?
If my math is correct, it's about, I added the septic, it's about 325,000, roughly.
You say you added the septic?
I did. Didn't you say 25,000?
It's on the list. Oh, you said septic was adequate, right?
It is right now.
When we met, was it a year ago or so, we talked about doing some of these capital improvement projects. We also talked about collaborating with some of the other organizations.
Right.
And we also talked about doing it in phases. I still believe that would be the way to go, because some of these things you're still researching, you're still finding out if they're going to be viable. Some things are not an immediate necessary need. And I guess what I'm saying is, there was a month or two ago, we were looking for funds to cut. And because we have additional funds, there may be other needs with other departments within the county.
We had a discussion this morning about the judge's
Excuse me,
proposal.
I hadn't finished my thought.
Go ahead.
Okay. We talked about this several years ago, and doing it in phases, which we have already started the project. But just because, to me, we have the funds available now, there are other needs also. And what I was saying with other departments and all of the things that we're trying to do in the county to spend, like you say, Commissioner, 325,000, whatever your number was, on one department, and haven't given it thorough thought or sit down like we did with the organizations to see how we can collaborate and work these numbers down.
Well,
I just believe that collaboration and talking it out and getting a good understanding, which is what I thought we did last year or so. So you sound like you prioritize some things that could be handled this year and other things that could come in future projects. So, now I'm finished.
okay. We talked about the budget this morning and how it's gonna be the judge's idea in the future to cut 3% out of the budget for next year, countywide. This is not a department, this is a hard asset that's owned by the taxpayers, that has fallen in somewhat of disrepair, trying to do it in phases. I don't foresee, if we go forward with building this building, that there's gonna be any funding available extra in the future to accomplish any of these projects. If we have the money in the bank now, we can accomplish all of these projects now. And that's where I stand on it. I mean, it's not a phase project, it's not a departmental project. This is a county asset that's owned by the taxpayers that is in need of some long overdue improvements.
But we have many assets, and I'm sure there are other assets that have additional lists that they could come up with. And all I'm saying is, we do have other departments or assets that also have needs. And I think the responsible way would be to do the research to find out some of the things he's not really sure if he wants to really go that way or a different way. He talked about the front of the parking lot. You know, you brought in a bid on the entire parking lot, but it sounded like we may need to do some things different there. Hopefully, the growth will continue in Grimes County, hopefully right along with the budget. And I know that we're taking on some new responsibilities that we have not, as we discussed earlier, just fully committed to. But I still believe there are other things that need to be addressed also.
And you're right, we haven't fully committed to it. We can fully commit to this project, these projects right now, and it's not going to impact the decisions on these other projects that we haven't fully committed to. We can
Well-
still have discussions about those, I think.
Well, I said my opinion, so.
Okay. Can I ask one more time on the parking lot? If you cover the parking lot and you do the ADA work and what a concrete pad where the ADA work is over to the front entrance, and you don't extend from where you're currently at to the front of the road, what is the semi-hard number for that?
That would be the, correct me, I think that's the 62,053. And then another 1,200 or, I don't think.
No.
No, it's
Uh-uh.
20.
It's less than that.
The existing parking lot work, I think is what you're talking about there.
Yes, sir.
And all the drives.
Yes, sir.
20,000, call it 600. And then the concrete sidewalks, another $1,200. And if you want to do the oil or the parking lot, that's another 18,000, so 38,000, yeah, $40,000.
Was the 18 for the whole parking lot, or was that for just the main?
For the for what we have, for the existing.
For the 18 is for the existing, okay.
So 38, 39, 39.8, say 40,000.
And that's using the donated.
Sure.
Judge, can I ask a question? It's not exactly on the budget, but somewhat related. We know it's never going to cover its own expenses, but I know I've heard the conversation a couple of times about potentially increasing the rate, increasing the rental. You thought any more about that?
We actually I increased the rate this year, and we're probably at about a 32% booked for next year, and we've already informed people that the rate will go up next year again. Based on what we're charging and what the other areas around here for size halls like that, we're still under the market, but that's one of the reasons that we're probably at about a 96% booked for every weekend out there. So, yeah, we will be looking at another rate increase in January of next year, and we've already informed people of that, so.
So if we book them now, they're kind of good with our current rates?
Correct.
But anybody that comes in now to book for next year, we're going to have increased rates?
That's exactly right.
All right. So Commissioner Cox, if I understand you, everything on this list with the exclusion, based on what Randy has said of the fairground equipment and covering the rodeo arena, it'd be your request that we cover everything on the list. The parking lot, we could put the parking lot in at a $40,000 cost, is that right?
If we get the material donated.
Okay. So if we don't get the material donated, do we do it?
I can't see us being able to do it because, again, with Mr. Walker, his estimate was 230 or 40,000. I got one contractor.
Should we go out for bids?
Well, I had one contractor came out and looked at it. He was over 300,000.
Okay.
For them to do it. So I don't foresee us being able to. If we can't get the material donated, which that'll be my challenge to try to get that taken care of.
Sure.
And Angel Brothers and Century Asphalt, you know, they've been very receptive to it. It's just a matter of them getting back with us and knowing when they can do it, because obviously this, you know, this is their peak time right now.
Sure. Sure. All right. So Commissioner Cox, let's go down, oh, sorry. $60,000 on repainting the barns. That number is lower if you insulate, or that number is higher if you insulate?
That is the number we had that we got, that was 18 months ago to do that, to do that.
And that was just a paint job?
Right, that was just a paint job. Come in and pressure wash everything down and put some makeup on it.
But we need to do something before it starts to deteriorate what we have.
And again, I mean, it's not gonna get any worse in the next 12 months, but it's something that down the road we have to address. And I don't wanna see it go, I don't wanna wait 2 years or 3 years. It's something that we do need to address as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So Judge, if my calculator's correct, with the projects that were identified early on, to include the sewer and 40,000 for the parking lot, that total's gonna be about $285,000.
That's the number we're looking at.
And that was removing the, you said earlier, playground equipment and what else?
The covered arena.
Just those two?
I was requested to get a price on covering that arena. We went out and measured it and trying to match it with the existing covers that are there over the bleachers. It comes to roughly 82,500 square feet. And based on that number, that number for the covered arena, and again, I know that's probably something we don't need to consider, may not need to consider at this time. but that comes to roughly $19 a square foot, and that would include a set of new restrooms out there, all new lighting and plumbing, and
Your comment to me once upon a time was that if you had a cover on that arena, you thought you could have that thing rented 75+% of
Sure.
the time.
no doubt. I mean, I get calls all the time from people wanting different events. Not only for horse events, but for different events. I mean, when we made the trip to Centerville, we saw and you know, concerts, different things like that. So it would give us a lot of other options that we could use. But it would entail us going in and probably taking down the existing rodeo arena and going in with a beam around the thing where we could actually use it for multi-purpose events.
And Judge, just to throw this out there, I'm not saying that I would be opposed to covering the arena, but that's not a necessity.
I understand.
These other things are.
They are. I hear you loud and clear.
And I feel the same way. I know what you're up against, and I just feel at this time that the county probably has some other needs, you know. And I know Mr. Walker's budget is probably one of the priorities for most people in the county. So, if it fell into our lap, that'd be a great thing to have. But, you know, sometimes wants and needs don't fit your budget.
So auditing department, when I don't want to use the term excess because there's never excess, but the money that wasn't allocated, that was put into fund balance?
It was put into the building.
Right. And what was that number?
508,000.
And is that what we're still working with potentially? So it either goes in the building and we don't borrow it, or we use it for these kinds of things that we're talking about right now.
I appreciate you saying you've been where we are.
Sure.
So you understand.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, whereas I'd like to see the improvements, and I agree some of them really need to be made, but one I didn't hear you talk about, you talked about it, but I don't see a number for it, was the dirt around the poles.
Oh, that would actually be part of that repainting the barn.
That's part of the
Yes, ma'am.
repainting of the barn?
Yes.
Okay, all right. But I was saying, you know, it's worth weighing it out because like you said, the things that touch citizens on a daily basis the most is where, as far as security, like Sheriff Department and Road and Bridge is high priority.
Well, we've pretty much, I mean, I've got a number here on deputies, jailers, dispatches, on salary adjustment. I got a solid waste salary adjustment. I got a road and bridge salary adjustment. I've got an EMC salary adjustment, and I've got an auditor's department salary adjustment. If I put all those together, it's just right under $28,000. Okay. Now, if there's other needs that we need to talk about, then we need to talk about those. But the $508,000, if you take the $28,000, then we're still sitting there with $480,000. We've got a number here from Commissioner Cox of $285,000 to take care, to do the maintenance and the repairs, as he said, on a hard fixed asset that we have. It's not undoable. It just, I guess it's a pay me now or pay me later type of situation, because the money that we're taking away from the building project is we're either going to reduce costs on that building project, or we're going to borrow a little bit more money to meet the needs of that.
Well, Judge, whenever I came up with the dollar amount that we have available out of fund balance, we weren't even aware of this additional $500,000. So You know, it's not part of my calculation.
Oh, so we just won the lottery.
No, you didn't just win the lottery.
That's how we're acting.
Ma'am?
See, that's how we're acting, like you won a lottery.
With me moving 40.
Well, we were looking for $1 million.
Sir?
Just my thought was, my maintenance and repairs budget was $81,000 this year. What I would like to see is if I could reduce that number to $45,000, basically moving $35,000 into capital improvements of money that I already have. And then if we could take that 35 minus that 128 that he had.
285.
Okay.
We already took it out, Commissioner.
Okay. Okay,
I
so
mean-
that money's already been taken out.
Yes, it's at 45 now in the current
Yes.
budget, isn't it?
What's in the proposed budget is only $45,000.
Okay, all right,
You had requested,
right,
but I did a hack job on you
okay,
before we submitted the.
Oh, we were looking for $1 million then.
Yeah.
okay. Well, then, I guess the consideration could be to create a capital improvement fund or line for that, for these items, and then,
And then plug in $285,000 in that line. Is that right?
yeah, and I almost feel guilty asking for that, because I know that there's other things, but from a priority standpoint, if we looked at the 21, I mean, the first two items, and then the water well, and then possibly the, I'd like to do those parking lot lights, because that's a security issue.
I totally agree with that.
Judge, I respect what Mr. Cruz said, but I still advocate to budget for all the needed identified repairs, because I don't foresee if things go the way that they're headed, that we're gonna have money in the budget going forward
What
to.
Commissioner, don't you agree that the number you gave us at 285 would take care of the needed repairs?
I believe it would, yes.
Okay, all right.
And what
So-
number were you about to say?
I was at 125.
You said one. Don't forget, we still have repairs here to be done.
Yeah, well, that's one of my questions this morning, but we didn't get to it.
I didn't hear that question, though.
We didn't get to it.
We haven't got to it yet, we bumped this up. All right, well, I tell you what, can we put this aside for right now, knowing that this list that y'all have presented is a $285,000 addition to the proposed budget if we approve to do that? If we don't approve to do that, your priority though is the water well, and your second priority is the parking lot, and that's,
And the HVAC and the dehumidifier, the energy control units.
but that's the air conditioner and the dehumidifiers are 14,000.
26, yeah, well, correct, yes.
All right, and then, but the controls need to go with that to
Correct.
try to reduce your, so you're talking 26,000 there. You're
Right.
talking 25,000 on the water well,
Yes.
and we're talking 82,000 on the parking lot.
Okay,
Is that right?
correct.
Okay, so that's 11, 13, carry the one, that's 10, 12, that's 133,000. You said
Well, it's 40
125 or something.
40,000, I think, on the parking lot for just the existing part.
Yeah, but the 84 came in to, if we have to add bollard striping and some of the other stuff that we
Yeah.
were looking at.
All right.
But if we could, yeah, 125, 130, somewhere along in there.
For
I
capital
can live with
improvements,
that.
you could live with that.
Yes,
But if we could do the whole package, we're talking about 285.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Commissioners, let me go back down the list, having conversation with the auditors and specifically with Jesse Murphy on the adjustments. for the deputies, the jailers, and one dispatcher, because we've had a change of personnel over there. If you total all of that, that's $8,700. I'll give you a minute to catch up.
8,000.
$8,700 in additional salary money. Is that correct, Jesse? Okay. So it's deputies and jailers, and this is not adding personnel, this is taking care of salary adjustments for incumbent or new personnel that are already on, correct? Okay. Any questions? I mean,
Is that load?
so everybody has that one. The next one is the request from Kat Lee where she's closing a solid waste, we're going to write solid waste 1,600. But it's her intent to close a location, move a building, the Keith location to close, move the building to B-Dyes, and then she's going to open up additional days in other high usage areas. But because of the additional hours and adjustment of personnel, that's going to be a $1,600 salary increase, and that's spread amongst individuals. It's not going to one person. The road and bridge is $4,800 in salary adjustments, and that's on the comeback comments from our road and bridge engineer that, hey, if you want me to absorb the subdivision administration position, I can do it with current personnel, but I want to have a $4,800 increase in compensation for those personnel. So it's not an addition to people, it's just an adjustment. Then the other one is on the EMC, where I had made the suggestion, and we as a court voted and agreed not to renew the contract with the GCFFA, Grimes County Firefighters Association. We're not going to renew that contract, and that expires the end of September. To have someone within the county that would then be responsible for making sure that our volunteer fire departments are in compliance with where they need to be in compliance, training, things of that sort, etc. Aside from the auditing, my suggestion was to, I use the term fire marshal, I nixed that. It was suggested we change it to emergency management services coordinator. So it'd be an EMSC, not an EMC. And my thought on that was to compensate that individual with the $500 a month stipend for that responsibility, which would be a total of $6,000.
69 with the.
I'm sorry?
You're given them numbers including the fringe, so it'd be about 69.
Okay, 69, oh, that, I did have 7,000. All right, 69. Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the district judges and the county court of law judge and the county judge met on Monday of this week, and the district judges have initiated their order for the auditor's department, and the total increase, correct me if I'm wrong, is $5,500. Okay. And that's throughout the department. So whether you like the $5,500 or not, that's probably a done deal.
Is that the only adjustment?
But what is up to us is the EMSC, road and bridge adjustments, solid waste adjustments, and the SO's office for the deputy jailers and dispatch adjustments.
And then y'all were to discuss the DA survey.
The what?
Oh, the DA cert, okay, we still haven't resolved that. And that was that the DA's office has hired Castro, who has the certification. John Wren's still here, and he has said that that is an asset that that individual carries. that they would utilize in the DA's department. Am I right or wrong?
Correct.
Okay, so it's $1,800 and that's a certification.
On the auditors, was that all auditors, including the auditor and the?
Does that $5,500 include you, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, it does.
What was that certificate pay again?
1,800, because that's a master's. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you-
Open for discussion.
Are you wanting to discuss them as a whole or in individual items?
I think we need to take them individually, unless we're gonna take them all at once.
Okay, we'll go with the last one you mentioned, certification pay. I would not be in agreement with that additional compensation. We have numerous departments that have certifications, could get certifications, and some even require certifications by law, and they're not compensated for that certification pay. To my
Give me
knowledge-
some examples, please.
Road and Bridge has, you could get a master, intermediate or basic operator.
But is that something they're gonna use?
How well do you want your operators to be?
I don't know, I'm asking a question.
Yes, they could use that. Clerks,
Does that go based on scale too? Do you have a,
Yeah, we did an
We
adjustment. I
have
thought.
certification based on training for different levels of operator skills on different pieces of equipment. And currently, we're requiring guys to take those classes, but they don't get any additional compensation for getting that certification.
But Harry, when we put the salary schedule together, didn't we say that they're gonna be at this level because they do have that certification?
The grade scale.
Another
The
grade
only
scale?
certification that's required that I'm aware of is the different positions require a CDL, and there are different levels of CDLs based on certain equipment.
When we did the grade structure last year, didn't we make changes where,
We've made some changes to the grade structure, but when we talked about certificate pay for the department, and then ended up not doing that.
so some other examples would be the environmental department. They're required by law to have a TCEQ certification to do their job, and they're not compensated for any type of certificate pay in addition to the salary that they make. The tax assessor's office is required to have fraud protection certification by law, and they're not compensated for any additional certification. The treasurer's office can get all types of financial certifications. The sorry, I have allergies. HR department, same way. Custodial, same way. I mean, just about every department in the county, the auditors can get certification, and we don't compensate for that additional certification. To my knowledge, the sheriff's department is the ones, law enforcement and jailers are the ones that prior courts have determined to pay for that certification. The prior person that we're talking about in this position didn't have that certification and wasn't paid for a certification, but still had the credentials to do the job. So,
Commissioner, are you through at the moment?
I guess.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So, we're talking about Tammy Castro. To speak to what Mr. Cox was saying, and to kind of remind everyone of what I said before. Our office is considered by the state of Texas a law enforcement agency. Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Standards and Ethics has already allowed our office to pick up the license that she holds as of last week. The sheriff's office, constables, and us are the county entities that are allowed to have and carry those licenses by the state governing body that says what a law enforcement agency is. Our office is one of the 3 bodies in this county, Sheriff's Office, Navasota Police Department, and our office, that have a TLITS terminal. Tammy has
Explain what a TLIS terminal is.
TLIS terminal is the telecommunications device that all law enforcement agencies nationwide and in some instances worldwide use to communicate privately. It is not accessible to the public in any way, regulated by the FBI and DPS, both at the national and state level. Our office has one of the 3 terminals in the county. One of the reasons we hired Tammy was because she could come in from the sheriff's office and run that terminal sight unseen, and we didn't have anybody else in the office with that capability. Something else I want to say about
But the value of her being able to run that is what?
it's invaluable because we don't have anybody else in the office currently to run it.
Okay, how were you doing it prior to hiring her?
Laura was when we.
So she had the certification?
Yes, she had the certification to run that terminal, and now Tammy has.
But she didn't have the
She didn't have-
master's?
She just didn't have a master's.
Okay, all right.
Something else I want to say about that, to make sure everybody's clear as y'all make this decision. Every single, and I helped get this program started at the sheriff's office 4 or 5 years ago. Law enforcement officers getting a certification pay is somewhat of an industry standard. It's common in almost all law enforcement agencies. That's why our county started to do it. There is not a single position at the sheriff's office, other than perhaps part-time, that is not eligible for this certification. It doesn't matter if they're the front office secretary, the evidence clerk, the kitchen jailer, the medical jailer, the administrative lieutenant, captain, doesn't matter what the job is. You're a law enforcement officer. At our office, myself and Cody Payne, the 2 police officers, we get our certification pay. And now, as of, I believe, this budget cycle, the constables have been included, which I also think was the right thing to do. If she is not allowed to get her certification pay just because she moved from department, she will literally be singled out as the only law enforcement person licensed in this county, paid for by Grimes County, who is excluded from being able to get this certification pay.
Okay.
But she's not law enforcement.
The state of Texas says otherwise. The state, because the state is allowing us to pick her license up and carry it only because they recognize us as a law enforcement agency. Now, I will tell you that our office cannot hold a jailer's license because we don't have a jail.
But you don't need a master's license to do what she does.
You don't need a master's license to do what I do, but that's not the point of the certification. The point of the certification is years of service and training to build and become a better asset to the county. It's not a requirement of any position at the sheriff's office either. The captain is not required to have a master's license. I'm not required to have a master's license. It's a benefit to the county.
But there are departments in this county that are required to have a certification, required to do it, to have it, to do their job, and they're not compensated for it.
I don't totally agree with that, because when we put the salary structure together, because of what was required of them, Commissioner, we elevated their pay grade to another level, or in some instances 2 levels. But you gave references to where people can get a lot of certifications, and that's great if people want to self-improve. But if the county is not going to benefit from that self-improvement, I'm absolutely okay with saying, that's great you have that, but we're not utilizing that skill.
But
And we're not gonna pay for it.
Okay, the prior person that was in that position didn't have a master's license, and she wasn't compensated. Compensated for the license that she did have, certification, in addition to her salary, which is what this proposal is due.
All right, I'm sorry you lost me.
The person that was in that position before that.
Laura Zaragoza.
Yes.
Okay,
Was not compensated certification pay.
she didn't have it.
She did.
She did not have anything above the basic, and y'all do not compensate extra.
Oh, well, yeah,
for
standard
basic.
one. We don't, there's no compensation for the basics, it's only the intermediate, advanced, and the masters.
So we're gonna, okay.
But I understand what you're saying, but had she had one of those other levels, and the county was utilizing that as an asset, then I think, just me speaking, that they should be compensated.
So we're gonna implement a certification compensation countywide?
Only if we use it, Commissioner.
Okay, Mr. Walker, are you telling him to,
I still believe that when we put the pay scales together, because you had operators that could do, or,
We have different grades of operators, but it's not directly tied to certification. It's just skill based.
okay, it was,
if,
I'm lost.
if they were being compensated for their certification and it was encompassed in the salary structure, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Say that again?
If they were compensated for their certification and it was captured in the salary structure, we wouldn't have this conversation about additional certification pay.
When we talk about raising the salaries of the road and bridge people, if I remember correctly, when we did the salary schedules, we talked about certifications would bring them more money, and I thought we did that in the salary.
I thought we did too.
Yeah, so I thought we did that in the salary that we set forward. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think that was my understanding of what happened.
Diane?
I hate to put a fly in the ointment, but one
No,
of
you
my
don't.
employees has a master's certification, and we never asked for the certification pay, but when we're in trial, if one of the deputies that's holding the shocker needs a break or needs to go to the restroom, they give it to her. She's certified to do that, and she holds it. And so I'm probably gonna be coming to you and asking for her to get certificate pay.
What? Okay.
I mean,
But all's that, okay, go ahead.
I'm not opposed if we're gonna pay certification pay if we do it county-wide.
But Commissioner, and I don't disagree with that, but if we're utilizing the certification pay and it's an asset to the county and it brings benefit to the county, I'm all in favor of paying that.
Okay, all right. Well, then we can implement a county-wide certification pay in these other departments that are allowed to obtain certifications. We can come up with a figure for what that value is to the county, and we can implement that too in the budget. It's not required, except on a couple of occasions that aren't encompassed in their salaries.
Well, it's just like on the environmental cat to hold her position or for your lady, I'm sorry, who's the other DR?
Angela.
Okay, Angela has to have the DR certification to do some types of things. We don't pay her additional money because she's certified. We allow her to keep her job because she's certified.
Okay, what's the difference?
I still see the issue, Commissioner, that you're tying the basic fundamental, you have to have this to have the job as being a part of the equation, and that has never been the scenario with law enforcement certificate pay. It's not a minimum standard for the job. It's a bonus to the job to have the experience in current law. For example, with police officers, it's 15 years, I believe, with the telecommunicator's office, so it's 8 years. But you have to have that many years of service to even qualify for it.
Okay.
But it's not you have to be 18 and have a high school diploma and a birth certificate. It's not a bare minimum standard to hold the job. It's an addition and a bonus to the county that you have it and that you have the training, because it saves the agency hiring somebody from having to send them off and get them trained and do all of these other things. They walk in the door and know how to do it.
I'm not disputing that, but we don't do that anywhere else in the county.
Except for the law enforcement officers. And again, I say if you...
You're speaking on behalf of the DA's
I'm
office.
speaking on behalf of the DA's office. And again, I say if you exclude her from this, you will be singling her out as the only law enforcement officer in this county that has a certificate held by the state that is not entitled to this just because she moved from one department to another.
But she's not a law enforcement officer.
She is a law enforcement telecommunicator
We are
licensed
considered
by
a
the
law
state.
enforcement agency, though.
But, yeah, I got that.
So she is moving from one law enforcement agency to another law enforcement agency. That's why we can hold a TLETS
But it's,
license.
a master's level is not required to do that job.
It's
And you're asking for additional compensation because she's got a master's certificate.
correct.
And I,
Well, can I also point out that I just gave.
Would you come to the podium, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to point out that I also just gave the county $6,172 out of forfeiture that was unclaimed. That I think Mary can back us up, which would pay for Ms. Castro's certification for the next 3 years.
but will it pay for everybody else that,
You're already paying those people the master's certificate that's within law enforcement. You're
we're
already
not talking
paying.
about that, we're talking about other departments.
But if it's not a necessary part of their job, you see what I'm saying?
And our department is not wanting to get into to
And we
an
don't-
argument about other departments. We only
All
want
we
to
care
speak
about
about
is Tammy.
law enforcement in our department.
What y'all decide to do with other departments is none of our business. But I just wanted the court to be aware that we've already given the court money to pay for her certification for the next 3 years.
Thank you. Mary?
I would just like to ask the question for the DA's office to respond. If other people in your office wanted to go and get these certifications, would y'all be coming back and asking for more cert pay? We don't, at this point in time, we don't need another person to have that kind of certification. We just have, the only other person that would get a minimum certification, which does not encompass this, would be Caitlin, who's going to class for that, but no.
And again, even if she wanted to try to advance herself, it would be years down the road before she would even
It'd
be
be 8 to
eligible for it.
15 years before she would ever be eligible.
Thank you.
Judge,
Do you need a break?
Judge, on discussing the changes and stuff, the DA's budget, because of the moving of Laura, did increase by $3,035, and the county court at law increased by $2,906.
We discussed that last week.
And I appreciate the forfeiture money being given and whatever else. I don't think that answers the I mean, the money's available, I get that. So it answers that question. But it's the issue of somebody has a certification. Are we utilizing that certification to the benefit of the county? And what the DA's office is telling us is yes. It is not a requirement to have the job, or you did not make it a requirement for her to get that job, or anybody else.
No different than any other position.
Okay. Harry, do you have clarification? Doug, you were on the phone. Did you have a?
Yeah, I had Ms. Bobby bring over the salary structure. The only things relative to road and bridge that we require for different positions are different levels of CDLs.
Okay.
It's gotta be, in some cases, gotta be a Class A CDL, some cases A or B, but there's no certificate pay for getting additional training.
Didn't you have motor grader, 2 levels of motor grader operators or something?
We did, we changed that up last year. We added a grade 7, I forgot what we call it, but it's between a finished blade operator
Yeah.
and just an operator.
And we modified the requirements of that job so that your incumbent personnel could do the finished work, did we not?
We changed that because, we talked about changing it because they were having trouble meeting the CDL requirements.
Yes.
But it turned out they ended up getting the CDL they needed anyway, so we didn't have to do that. but there's no certificate pay associated with it.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Commissioner Cox, I, to a degree, understand where you're coming from. But I am gonna say it again, that just because people go out and get certified, the county is not obligated to compensate them for that. Now, if that certification becomes an asset where we can utilize it within the county, then I think that we should go ahead and pay them, or we put them in a higher grade. Going back to the environmental, if you don't have that particular certification, you don't get to have the job. So, well, anyway, we have put a number of items before us on adjustments to the budget. So commissioners, do you want to take these one at a time? We're not making very good progress, but you want to take these one at a time? Probably the best thing to do. So we've had a lot of conversation on the DA's certificate pay of $1,800. John, for procedural, you know, the agenda item says, discuss and take action on proposed changes to the FY20, should be 2020, proposed budget. Can we hit these one at a time, or do we need to take it all at once?
You can
Your
certainly do
thoughts?
as many motions and as many actions as you need to.
Okay, then we'll take these one at a time. We've had fairly thorough discussion on the $1,800 certificate pay for the DA. Is there a motion on that one particular item?
I make the motion that we approve the master certification for the DA department.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the $1,800 certification pay for the DA by Commissioner Walker. It is seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. All in favor say aye.
Are we gonna have any
Aye.
discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but I do believe that there's a situation in the county that we need to come back to in the future and discuss about certificate pay
Okay.
across the board.
Okay. I'm all for that,
I
for
agree with that.
clarification.
I agree with that.
Sure. All right. Any further discussion? Thank you, Commissioner. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Y'all can stay or you're dismissed. Okay, the auditor's additional is $5,500. I don't really think that requires a vote from us. That's an order from the district judges. So Jesse Murphy, if you'll add that. The EMSC for, how do we get, okay, the 6,900 includes the load or the fringe or what, or the adjustment. All right. $6,900 on the EMSC.
I have a question, Jim.
Yes, sir.
I do.
Oh,
Aren't you taking some duties away from him?
we are.
Just asking.
No, we are.
Just thought.
No, I thought about that thought before I made my recommendation. And again, this was just my recommendation, so,
Judge, could I make a comment on that?
yes, sir.
I had a call from it's actually not a resident, but he raised the issue with me, and some of the things may have some validity and may not, but it was a suggestion that maybe that position also oversees EMS. I know the committee of Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Mallett and the folks who were overseeing the EMS committee that ran into some trouble and had difficulties. I think those have been smoothed out. But I thought that had value, and so I thought I'd offer it to the court. I thought I'd have another opportunity to bring that up, but before, if you're going to vote on the dollars, I thought I'd just throw that out there. Makes sense to me that that person that is the not fire marshal could also oversee those things.
Emergency Management Services
And
Coordinator.
Because he'd be overseeing the ambulance contract and coming to the court to say this is what's going right or wrong with the contract, same as he would be with the VFD contract.
And also with the first responders.
Right, exactly right, exactly right.
And he's gonna have his hands full the first couple of years trying to get all of this worked out.
I didn't say that.
I did.
I was thinking the same thing.
He's gonna have plenty to do, I can promise you.
Good suggestion.
I move to add the additional pay for the EMSC. as
I
presented.
second.
There's a motion before the court by Commissioner Mallett on the EMSC, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there discussion? Well, I would think the discussion from my point would be that we consider making it in the job description, the EMS and the first responders, along with the volunteer fire department oversight, along with the emergency management coordination that he currently does. Saying that, all in favor of motion on $6,900 increase on the EMSC, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? That motion carries. Jesse, would you add that to the budget, please? Road and Bridge, there's a request there that because subdivision coordinator work is being assigned to that department, full-time or completely without the addition of personnel, it's anticipated, or it's requested that there be a $1 per hour increase for 2 individuals that will be taking that assignment. That's $4,800. Is there a motion?
I make the motion that we make the adjustments for road and bridge subdivision coordinators to $4,800 increase.
Second.
There's a motion before the court by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski on the increase of the $4,800 for road and bridge. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Solid waste, increase of $1,600 because of adjustment, the closing of location, opening other locations for extended periods of time. It's not, well, it's $1,600.
I make the motion that we do the salary adjustments for additional hours for the environmental department.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on the solid waste adjustment by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Jesse, would you add that to the budget, please? On the deputy jailers dispatch, Jesse, would you define what is the breakdown on that for us, please?
Yes. Get that page. Sorry. Okay, so deputies, let's see, for the jailers, they will need an additional 14 grand. This is salary only, not fringe. Dispatchers, they're giving back 3,300. The jail administrator will need an additional 249. And the deputies will give back 4 grand. So cumulative, that's 7,500, but with fringe, that's 8,700.
Thank you for that explanation. Based on that explanation of the $8,700 increase, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the $8,700 for Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion before the court on increasing deputy jailers dispatch a cumulative total of $8,700, although some of that is give and take by Commissioner Dobianski. seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. The last thing on the list that I have is now the fairgrounds. And we have before us the fairgrounds list, and we've had a fair amount of discussion on the fair area. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at is pretty much everything on this list with the exception of the cover for the rodeo arena and the playground equipment. And Commissioner Cox, did that 285,000, does that include any septic work or does not include septic work?
It does, $25,000.
It does? Okay, so the 285 does include 25,000 for septic work. Excellent, okay.
Judge. Septic work? Talking about the new water well, is that what you're calling it?
No, septic, sewer.
See, I know that Randy had said that he thought they could use some of the same tanks and that kind of stuff.
He said they were fine, if I heard correctly. What did you hear, ma'am?
He said that they would need, he did say that he would want it to use some of the same tanks and some of the same pumps.
Yeah, he said they wasn't sure about the parking lot extension because they were thinking that in the future they would need that area
spray area.
for the
Right.
sprayers and the sprinklers.
Right.
And that was the point I was raising, that the complete plan or all of the things that he talked about, still some of them were needing investigation. And the only reason I raised that issue is because it's a hard asset, just like this building is a hard asset. And we still talk about the renovations that have to be done here for us to move over there. So I just want us to keep that in mind.
Well, whether,
He said 125 to 130.
125 to 130, what, oh, okay, for his, 133 is what he said for his minimal. And that was the 82,000 on the parking, and it was the 25,000 on the water well, and it was the 26,000 on the
Humidifier and
AC, humidifier, and control.
Yes.
Those were the absolutes. But as Commissioner Cox was campaigning, he feels it's important to do this full list of asset repair, and that number was 285,000. And in your calculation, you had added 25,000 for the septic system, correct?
It's rounded to 285, that is correct.
Okay. So the question before us, commissioners, is do we want to go with the 133,000 or do we want to do the 285,000 or somewhere in between?
I didn't see, I added at the same time he added. I took the numbers that were on the list and I came up to 258. So the 258 plus the two.
It's 14,000 for the HVAC. 12. 60. 22.5. 10. 45. 25. 14. 16. Sewer 25. Parking 40.
Okay.
And so your 255 and his, those numbers would come together.
258 is what the list was. I mean, he said he didn't need sewer work. I mean.
I thought his response was that he could get by for right now, but he needs to do it.
But he didn't know what he was going to do.
Well, if we're gonna do it, I mean, it just makes sense to do it while we're completing all these other projects.
Right.
In my
Kat, what's your opinion on those septics?
On the septics, it's gonna have to be replaced in the very near future. And with him wanting to use tanks, there are some tanks out there that are no longer OSSF up to standard that he will not be able to use, because once you modify a system more than 10%, nothing is grandfathered in anymore, as far as what's approved by OSSF. So he's gonna run into some more monetary, he's gonna need more money once he starts modifying those systems. Right now, there's 2 systems out there. He has an ET bed that is behind the rodeo arena, and that handles that side of the complex. And then he has a basic conventional system with a pump that is on, as you come in on this side of the buildings, behind the storage units. And that is the one that I believe is gonna cause the issue for us to get a complaint back when Ms. Harmon was here.
He also talked about advocating collaboration with the other organizations. He wasn't sure on. So what, I guess my question would be, if we allocated the money and they then step forth with the other organizations working with us, are they gonna still feel like they need to even work with us if?
Well, if they don't work with us, then they're going to be obligated to pay rentals and those kind of things. So I think it's pay me now or pay me later, you're gonna pay us one way or the other. And if we put the 285 and we don't need to utilize that 285, then that's gonna go back into the general fund, which is okay. But if he's going to work the project and he's gonna need the 285 with the septics. So anyway. Speaking of the groups that's putting money into it, why are we putting a walk-in cooler in
That's
the,
what
replacing
it's a whole
walk-in
lot of
cooler in
stuff
the
over
Lions
here.
Club building?
That's one of the items that he's identified as an area that needs to be addressed.
I think that question needs to be answered on that because we have a walk-in cooler in the main hall. And I'm not aware of any functions over there that would require a walk-in cooler other than the Lions Club keeping whatever they want to keep cool in that building. And they have not spent, to my knowledge, a lot of money on repairing that, but they use that building more than what is listed in the contract that they have with the county, which we no longer have contracts with each of those groups for the use of the facility.
Do they have a walk-in cooler in the Lions building?
Evidently they do.
I don't think they,
It's
well, it's replaced ceiling tiles in the Lions Club hall / walk-in cooler. Is the walk-in cooler the one in the main building?
No,
Or is it the
that
Lions?
one's just been replaced, I think. This says in the Lions Club.
Now, I do have a question for the auditor. I know recently there was a claim made for the Lions Club building, is that correct?
It was damaged the second current lightning strike.
Okay, so did that include, it was a lightning strike, not damage from like water where the tiles would be included?
There's been several claims, so I'd have to double check, but I know we have received money back from tax.
And I just wondered if we had damage and it was water damage from an insurance claim, wouldn't that cover the tiles in the Lions Club building? I mean,
I should, but I can't answer that.
I didn't think about it till now, I'm just thinking.
So if we take out the $14,000 for that.
271.
It's 271.
Judge?
Ma'am?
I just asked Catherine Lee how much she thought that it would cost to work on those sewers. And the last quote she got was $49,500 to do all the work that needs to be done. So that $25,000 is not gonna cover.
No.
That was to put in the new system for the whole complex.
And that's what he said he was still researching that, just.
So that brings the figure to 295.
You took off the Lions Club business and added the full amount then to the, okay. So 295?
Yes.
All right. Well, Commissioner, if you're in the mood, why don't you make a motion?
Okay, I move that we allocate a capital improvement line item for the fairgrounds to include replacing the one 10-ton HVAC unit, installing energy control units, repainting the barn and/or foaming, whichever is the appropriate way to go, repainting inside of the main hall, replacing the parking lot lights, replacing the lights under the barn, drilling a new water well, replacing the floor covering in the main hall, performing parking lot work as specified by the Road and Bridge Department in the amount of $40,000, and installing a new septic system not to exceed $49,500. Which
Should we say the current parking lot? Because they didn't include expanding it.
I'll modify the motion to include the current parking lot. To include a figure not to exceed $295,000 for those repairs.
Thank you.
To be placed in a separate line item.
Yes,
correct?
capital improvements line item for the fairgrounds.
Okay.
And that's fund,
36.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion before the court on the fairground expenditures. In summary, it's a total of $295,000 going to capital improvements. And that'll be in Fund 36 by Commissioner Cox, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Jesse, if you will make those adjustments to the budget. Thank you very much. Are there other items that need to be considered for the budget? Mary?
Volunteer fire departments, has the contract been
Here,
revamped?
my thought on that is we're budgeted for the worst case scenario, meaning that we would leave it department by department as it is. At the end of the day, that would not be my desire. Have to take that before the court, but that would not be my desire, and therefore I think that total amount is going to be reduced.
I think so too. And so if that can be decided before the final approval of the budget, it would be great, because then we could put that dollar amount back into the.
Well, I have our very gracious and generous county attorney's office helping us with that contract, and I hope to have that where we can be in agreement, and that's the best thing. And we still got the balance of September, and I will be working with the court's permission on getting those negotiated and resolved. So before we make a final approval, we ought to have an idea of what the savings, if there's going to be a savings or addition, would be. Is that reasonable, Court? Is that reasonable, County Attorney?
Absolutely, Judge. I think you have the draft in your hands already.
Well, actually, it's still on the printer, but I haven't gone through it. But I do appreciate the help you all afforded. And also, the auditor's office had some, I think, some input on that, so. Are there any other budget items? With that, we will then move to agenda item number 18, considering to take action regarding the burn ban and authorize the county judge's signatory. We have a burn ban that's in place, and we haven't had sufficient rain throughout the county to really remove that at this time. And aren't we, once it goes in, we leave it in for 90 days regardless, or we can remove it earlier? Okay.
Correct.
So I would have proposed no action, Commissioners. With that, are there any updates to the strategic plan?
I'd just like to make a comment on the strategic
Please.
plan. It was noted earlier that building new county facilities was identified as a priority. It's one of the lowest funding priorities.
Say that again?
It was identified as a priority on the strategic plan. but the funding level, the funding priority was one of the lowest.
Okay. Any other comments on the strategic plan? With that, we'll go to agenda item number 20. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
There's a motion before the court to adjourn by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Walker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.